Sony is being sued for £5 billion in the UK for allegedly ripping off customers and being anti-competitive. We've got information from a lawyer weighing in. Obviously, I'm going to weigh in. Is this whole thing a joke or is this a legitimate lawsuit? We're going to be breaking it all down for you. And right here at the beginning of the stream, I give you all the info. The video is a little bit longer because it's a live stream, but I do this so that you don't have to go searching for all of the info, and we call this an update. This is a Reforge update. Sony is being sued for £5 billion in the UK for allegedly ripping off customers and being anti-competitive. We're going to take a look at what is being claimed. A lawyer weighs in, and I think this entire thing is laughably stupid. So we're going to break this down for you very quickly in a Reforge update. Always be sure to check out Reforge Gaming for the live streams that I do every day, and make sure to hit subscribe and the bell button on both channels so you don't miss my content. So Eurogamer.net has the following to say. Sony is accused of abusing market power by imposing unfair terms and conditions on game developers and publishers, forcing prices up for consumers, reports Sky News. So what exactly is in this claim? The legal action states consumers have been overcharged by as much as £5 billion. Anyone in the UK who has purchased content on the store since the 19th of August 2016 is included in the claim and is potentially entitled for compensation, said the 9 million people. Like, this is said to be about 9 million people that are potentially able to claim. This would be estimated damages per claimant between £67 and upwards of £562. Now, the 30% cut that Sony takes for their digital, storefront and the things that are sold there is being zeroed in on. However, according to Eurogamer, the 30% cut from Sony is an industry standard in line with other game companies like Microsoft, Steam, and the App Store. It's unclear why exactly Sony is the sole target of this claim. So why exactly are they being zeroed in on and claimed that they're doing something wrong when basically everybody does this? Quote, Sony is ripping off customers is part of the claim on the official website. Little weird that a lawsuit has its own website. With this legal action, I am standing up for the millions of UK people who have been unwittingly overcharged. We believe Sony has abused its position and ripped off its customers. The unwittingly overcharged statement is silly and inaccurate, given that pricing parity with the market is well in place. Sony's games are not grossly overcharged compared to other games, so they're not out of step with the actual industry or market, and there's no surprise charges. Nobody is actually getting charged anything extra. The prices are clearly labeled. This sounds to me like whiny entitlement. This is a part of the presser and their statement. Gaming is now the biggest entertainment industry in the UK, ahead of TV, video, and music, and many vulnerable people rely on gaming for community and connection. The actions of Sony is costing millions of people who can't afford it, particularly when we are in the midst of the cost of living crisis and the consumer purse is being squeezed like never before. None of that has anything to do with the cost of video games, as they are luxury items that you're not entitled to, and people that are vulnerable and relying on games for community and connection is simply the injection of an emotional argument. A lawyer, Richard Hoeg, weighed in and said it's a tough case to bring. First, you have the issue that each individual transaction was voluntarily made at the prices offered, which is why you can't claim people were unwittingly overcharged. Second, that the prices largely mirrored those across the industry. As I said, they have parity with the market pricing currently going on. Third, the intermediary pricing, the 30% cut, was also mirrored by other market participants at the time, again, invalidating their claim that this is somehow something Sony is doing that is wrong or anti-competitive. Fourth, although the 30% argument mirrors Epic versus Apple in the lawsuit that they had, you have a lot of language in that case attempting to distinguish the console markets, though the language is not controlling and may may not be persuasive. Fifth, there's no indication that a change to the 30% might actually affect the bottom line consumer-faced pricing. Basically, if Sony wasn't taking the 30%, would that even affect what you pay for the game? Probably not, as we have seen indication with the Epic Store and other places where games are priced lower or they take less of a cut. Epic takes less of a cut, but the prices of the games aren't lower there. Some of that is because of Steam's, anti-competitive contracts, and they don't allow games to be cheaper anywhere else unless they're also cheap on Steam, which would basically mean those games would be permanently lowered in price, and developers like money just as much as anybody else. 6, because the 30% was established before any market-controlling position, you have an issue establishing that this is anti-competitive. In other words, the case is bogus. This is anti-Sony PR stunt with no merit. There's a literal website for the lawsuit. They're basically advertising how bad Sony is with their own website, like Sony or PlayStation YouOweUs.com or something ridiculous like that. This statement alone should really show you how stupid the entire thing is. Quote, PlayStation occupies a dominant position in relation to the digital distribution of PlayStation games. Yeah, it's their property. They own it, just like Nintendo or any other platform with their own first-party software. This has got to be one of the dumbest things I've ever reported on. Head over to Reforge Gaming to hear me get really angry about it. Hit subscribe and the bell button so I can see you in the next update. I'll see you in the next video. That's a great ender. That's the best video ender ever. This is so dumb. This is the dumbest thing I've ever had the displeasure of reading. How can you be anti-competitive with your own property? It's your property. It's yours. This is the dumbest thing. The only reason we're covering this is because I didn't want people to say, well, you refused to cover the Sony lawsuit because you are a fanboy of Sony. No, I didn't want to cover this because it's dumb. It's dumb. They're talking about all games. No, the exact quote. PlayStation occupies a dominant position in relation to the digital distribution of PlayStation games. It's the stupid... I don't even know why you would type that. That's their games! You can say the same thing. Nintendo occupies a dominant position in relation to the digital distribution of Nintendo games. They build an ecosystem, they bought developer companies, invested in first-party titles, and distributed their hardware very effectively. So yes, Nintendo occupies a dominant position in relation to the digital distribution of PlayStation games. And Nintendo almost never discounts their games. This is just anti-Sony PR nonsense. This has nothing to do with how things are priced. So we consumers are literally forced to accept digital pricing? Yeah! Yes! You are! That's the facts. What do you mean you're forced to accept the digital pricing? They're luxury items. They're luxury items. If I created a website and I sold on that website digital music, right? And the music was insanely priced. Here's a minute-long song of me going ba-boo, 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 and that's all it is. It's just me making some stupid sound for a minute, and I'm charging $1,000 for that. No one's forcing you to buy my god-awful music. No one's forcing you to buy video games. These are luxury items. You're not entitled to anything. You're not entitled to better pricing. The only thing you're entitled to is a market that has not been manipulated through anti-competitive means, and there's zero proof of that in digital pricing, right? There's no proof of that happening. The market's not being manipulated in an anti-competitive way. And even if you want to make the argument that, well, Sony charges more for their games, yeah, okay, so it's their games. How is that anti-competitive? Anti-competitive would them be, they would be forcing Xbox to do something with their titles that are pricing, and they're not doing it. If Sony wants to walk out into the market and say, hey, God of War Ragnarok is $90, how is that anti-competitive? It's their title. It's their game. And they're setting the price And honestly, just raising the price arbitrarily on your own property would actually be pretty non-competitive because you would make the other platform look better. People are like, well, Xbox isn't doing this. Yo, what's good, Feed? I see you in the chat. It doesn't make any sense. If Nintendo just decided one day that all Nintendo titles were $100, that's not anti-competitive. It's their stuff. So the irony is that would actually make Nintendo less competitive in the market because it would make other platforms seem better. Oh, I can go somewhere else. I'm gonna go get a PlayStation. I'm gonna go to an Xbox. You're missing the point. Oh, please enlighten me on what the point is. How you can take issue with a company being in the dominant position in relation to the digital distribution of their property. It's their stuff. This doesn't make any sense. You can only get Nintendo digital games from Nintendo. That's the way that it works. Now, you can buy codes from outlets here and there, but generally speaking, if you want a digital game, that's what you got to do. You got to go to the source of who owns it. Generally speaking, you can buy digital from Sony's store nowhere else. So, it's their property. Who the frick cares about that? Why do they have to make their game digitally available anywhere else? It's their property. You've got to make sense of that for me. Can you consume any Disney movies or Marvel content digitally anywhere else? No, you can only consume it on Disney Plus. Why? Because Disney owns it. Xbox, you can buy digital anywhere? Okay, but that's not a market imperative. That's Microsoft's decision. Microsoft also is creating parity with the PC platform, so it stands to reason that they would make their digital content available in more places. You can go to Amazon, you can go to GameStop, and you can buy digital codes unless they're completely disallowing that. And even if they're disallowing that, who the frick cares? It's their property. If that's what they want to do, they're allowed to do that. It's theirs. You can't consume anything Marvel, anything Disney. You can't consume it digitally anywhere but Disney Plus. You can't. Now, you might be able to buy some of the movies on Amazon. You may be able to buy them there. But if you want to consume them as streaming media, you've got to go to Disney Plus. There is content that you can only get on certain platforms because they own the distribution rights. It's their property. It's like, here, do you want to consume Queen's Gambit digitally? You've got to go to Netflix to do that. It's their property. They spent the money. They funded the project. Queen's Gambit was filmed, funded, and produced by Netflix. And if you want to consume it, you got to go to Netflix. That's not anti-competitive. That's actually competitive. They're making products for you to come consume on their stuff. Rissick with the $10 tip. They had the same case here in the States. It got thrown out in 2021. Thank you for the $10 tip through Super Chat. Gang's coming in with a $10 tip. Literally sounds like one of my kids throwing a tantrum because their sibling won't share their toys. Thank you, Gangs, for the $10 Super Chat. Guys, do me a favor. Go through the morning rituals. Give us our first 100 likes. Smash the subscribe button if you're new. And make sure and chime in the chat. Say good morning. Maybe let's get some gifted members to kick the morning off. Thank you for supporting the channel. If you're watching the VOD, the best way to support the channel is order coffee, or if you're not going to order coffee, become a member. What justifies the price point? Nothing justifies the price point. The market justifies the price point. Why do they get to take 30% from third-party games and microtransactions? I don't know. Ask Microsoft and Nintendo. They do the same thing. Ask them. Ask Apple. They do the same thing. Bro's just waffling? Who's waffling? I'm waffling? You think the rant that I just went on for 3 minutes about when someone owns the distribution rights of a product or invests in the property, they can determine where it's sold and how it's sold and how much it's sold for? You think that's waffling? Me explaining basic economics and copyright law to you? That's waffling? Does it sound like waffling? Am I using too many big words? Is it hard to understand what I'm saying? If the cut's too high, then developers will move away from the platform. And that is why this is happening. It has nothing to do with consoles. It's about digital marketplaces. But I don't understand. Why exactly is, and I also think that guy's using waffling because he probably heard it on like a political like forum or something and doesn't actually know what it means. Waffling means I'm switching between positions and won't choose a position, which you're extremely unfamiliar with my content if you think I've ever done any waffling. I think you probably just saw somebody use that word on the internet and you think it's a good word to use in instances like this. Like I'm failing to make up my mind as I strongly assert how stupid this lawsuit is and how entitled people are with respect to pricing. Like, I think you literally don't know what waffling means. James with hitting a 3-month milestone as a member. I'm not seeing the issue with Sony. Yeah, sue the entire industry. Do it. Sue the entire industry. Everybody's doing this. What about third parties? Their prices are higher because of the cut. There's no way bro just said that. See, what's funny is you're not making an argument. You're failing to make an argument. You used what you thought was like an internet dirty word, and as I've shown that it fails to apply to what I'm doing, you're now just saying there's no way I've said that and you're spamming emojis. You're seemingly too stupid to enter the argument, so you're just making sideline comments, I guess for attention. I tell you what, my tolerance is low for people like you because I don't abide dumb people anymore. I just don't. So, I've never seen you here before. Your time here is now over. I will not allow people like you to come in and distract and disrupt the conversation with dumb sideline comments because you don't have enough brain cells to formulate your own argumentation. It's anti-competitive. You can only buy from one place. What a beautiful axiom. It's anti-competitive if you can only buy from one place. Yeah. Yep. Yeah, that's anti-competitive, man. I can only buy Breath of the Wild from Nintendo. I can only do that. I can't buy it anywhere else. Oh my gosh, dude. So anti-competitive. Thank you for the first gifted member today, Silver Shadow. We'll see who grabs it first. Takes a little bit longer for them to get grabbed. You're literally describing what is competitive when one company invests in something awesome and says, do you want this awesome thing? Cool. You got to come here to get it. You want to play God of War? It's on PlayStation. You want to play Halo? It's on Xbox. You want to play Breath of the Wild? It's on the Nintendo Switch. That's actually an expression of competitive. Isu Ishiwa got the membership. Thank you so much for doing that, Silver Shadow. You can't buy a McDonald's cheeseburger from Wendy's or Burger King. It's their property. They did the research. They invested in the flavor of the bun and the flavor of the burger. Like, it's theirs. You can't buy it anywhere else. Like, your axiom is so ridiculous because it's literally the expression of competition for a company like Sony to say, hey, we're going to buy this company, invest in this game, make this game super awesome, and you can only get it on our platform. You're talking about first party. It's not about first party. It's about third party. Okay. You need to go read the actual case. Allow me to quote what they've said. PlayStation occupies a dominant position in relation to the digital distribution of PlayStation games. Okay? You can buy digital codes for games in more than one place. You don't have to go for there. Now, I don't know if in the UK, if you go to like GameStop.UK or whatever, and if you go to like Amazon UK, can you not order digital codes? Because right now, I can get a digital code. I could get a digital code for an Xbox card, a PlayStation card, and then I could use that to buy the game, or I could buy the games themselves. You can, says Paul. So if you want to right now, you can go buy a digital code. You can't buy digital games from other places. I don't think that's true. GameStop and Amazon sell digital codes in the UK. So is this lawsuit literally just saying something that's not true? You can go to Amazon's website right now in the UK and buy yourself a code for a digital game. You can't buy digital games in the US. Legend status says you can buy from a number of places. I got people that literally live over there saying you can buy digital codes on these locations. I can get a digital code from Amazon right now. I can go to GameStop right now and they print my digital code on the receipt. Creature says, I found 3 places to buy digital codes in under 3 minutes yesterday. No, you can't. The target is the 30% cut the store takes. Cool, then sue Nintendo, Microsoft, and Steam, because they do the exact same dadgum thing. Should I sue YouTube? YouTube takes 30% of my membership and super chats. They built the platform. You give me money through a super chat or a membership, and YouTube takes 30%. Steam, Microsoft, Nintendo, they all do it. So sue the entire dadgum industry. Why? What's it to the... See, the consumer has no claim over that, by the way. If the developers want to fight against that, they would have to do it on their own. You can't, as the consumer, be like, hey, you're not allowed to charge them that. What the frick? What's it to you? What are you talking about? We entered into a contract. Their platform size and distribution is well worth giving them a 30% cut of all sales. Shut the frick up, consumer. You have no say in this. T-Bone hitting a 5-month milestone. Lono, this guy in a nutshell. I'm suing Five Guys because I feel they're overpriced and McDonald's is cheaper. Right? Like, Five Guys has a dominant position in relation to the distribution of Five Guys cheeseburgers. In an attempt by an investment fund to cash in on anti-competitive legislation, the UK recently allowed firms to take collective cases on an opt-out basis. Wasn't that what Epic sued Apple for and lost? Yeah, the 30%. Yeah, that's what Epic sued Apple over. Yeah. I don't think they won, did they? Yeah, the consumer thinks it would be 30% cheaper if Sony did not take something off the top. Sure, go buy games from the Epic store then. Go on. Go ahead. Go ahead. Load up the Epic store. They don't take as big of a cut as Steam does. Are games cheaper in the Epic store? No, they're not. Do you want to know why they're not cheaper in the Epic store? Because Steam has anti-competitive clauses in their contracts. If a game is cheaper anywhere else, it has to be that price on Steam. And so game companies say, it's not worth it. We can't lower the price of the game everywhere. Also, if we lower the price in Epic, what's the point of that? Having pricing parity makes sense. So pricing parity leads to more profit for us. Because if somebody buys it in Epic, we make a bigger cut over there. Games that Epic has exclusively still don't charge lower. Oh, so do they only charge them less if they're elsewhere then? I thought it was reported that Epic didn't take the 30%. I thought they took a lower percentage. Apple takes a cut. Everybody takes a cut. This has no bearing on the consumer. Do you honestly think that you'd be able to buy video games for cheaper right now if Sony would just stop taking a cut? Of course, they don't charge lower for exclusive titles. It's exclusive there. They want their money. I guess that makes sense. They paid a lot of money. That's probably a recouping factor. If they paid for the exclusivity, they're going to take a larger cut because they want to recoup the cost of the investment in the exclusivity. Devs would just get more. That's exactly what the lawyer said. He was like, even if Sony wasn't taking 30%, the devs would just take more. Why? Because it's an industry standard price point. Games are between $60 and $70 now, as they have been since I bought freaking Nintendo cartridges. So game companies would just take more. Well, thanks, Sony, for not charging $30. We get more money now, or the publisher, however the contract's been drawn up. The way I see anti-competitive, if you make it impossible to get a product anywhere else. Example, I have to go to Sonic to get a milkshake, and they're the only ones who have it. But that's not anti-competitive. No. Anti-competitive would be if Starbucks tried to shut down legislation or get legislation trotted out so that like no coffee shops could open in any city anywhere. Well, now you're making it to where if you want to buy coffee as a consumer out in the public, you can't do it. And other coffee companies could sue and say, that's anti-competitive. You're blocking us from making coffee, right? But if you want a Starbucks white chocolate mocha that they came up with, it's their recipe, it's their product, you gotta go to them for it. You can't go to like Heine Brothers and say, hey, I'd like a Starbucks white chocolate mocha, and they're like, we don't make that here. I mean, we make a white chocolate mocha, but it's not going to be the exact same as theirs. It's not a Starbucks white chocolate mocha. This is ridiculous. I should be able to buy it here. What are you talking about? Surprise, nothing changed, and games still perform better than the moment perform better the moment they go to Steam, like laughably better. You'll soon see lower prices for games on the Epic Store. Hilly says 8, competing fairly. Abuse of dominant market position, Chapter 2 of the Act and Article 82 of the EC Treaty prohibit a business which holds a dominant position in a market from abusing that position. A dominant position in a market essentially means that a business is generally able to behave independently of competitive pressures, such as other competitors in that market. Conduct which would be considered abuse by a business in a dominant position includes charging excessively high prices. Sony doesn't do that. Limiting production. They don't do that. Refusing to supply an existing long-standing customer without good reason. They don't do that unless you get banned for breaking TOS. Charging different prices to different customers where there is no different to what is being supplied. They don't do that. Making a contract conditional on factors that have nothing to do with the subject of the contract. They don't do any of those things. They don't do any of those things. Their prices are in line with the market. There's a pricing parity in line with the market. The 30% cuts in line with the market. Sony is not doing anything with their dominant position. They're not doing anything different than what Microsoft and Nintendo are doing. Also gaming systems and video games that can be purchased within the UK market. This is a stupid lawsuit. There's nothing here. If the terms of the transaction vary, what's wrong with that variance? No matter the platform, no variance is just as good as no competition. I'm not sure what you mean. This lady is the ambulance chaser of the YouTube of the video game industry. Yeah, like why do you have a PR website with your picture on it and your profile? Why? If Sony lost this lawsuit somehow, would that $5.9 billion be distributed to consumers or go to the person who made the lawsuit? Consumers are entitled of upwards of like almost 600 pounds. Nothing more than that, though. You're not entitled to anything substantive from the litigation. You're not. Imagine if someone told you that your income was too high and sued you for it. I remember when games were all $20 full game price. When? What universe, what multiverse did you live in where games were always $20 for the full game, 40, 60, and now they're trying to get a minimum? What era are you from where you were buying full games for $20? Because that is a freaking falsehood. I bought Nintendo cartridges. They were never $20. In fact, with inflation, when they were between $50 and $70, that amounts to about $100 to $150 of money that we have now. If you think about inflation, going to the store and buying a cartridge for $50 to $70 was like dropping over $100 on a video game. That's never been a thing. Yo, Poop Sack says, let's start Operation Grey Name early. Maybe these will get claimed before the end of the day. We got 10 gifted memberships. Click in the chat to allow gifts. Don't know what to tell you, Lono. Lamau, I was buying games as cheap as $20 when I was a kid. Okay, going to the bargain bin and like buying games that have been discounted is not in line with any of the history of video games. What you're saying is not representative of the market at any point in the history of video games. Are you saying anything that is representative of the market? That's false. The standard pricing of video games, we've researched this, all the way back to the original Nintendo, standard pricing of video games range between $50 and $70. What you're saying is false with representation of the actual market and the standard pricing that existed back then. It simply isn't true. Yeah, did you give your parents $20 and they paid the rest? Were you buying used games? I'm telling you, what you're saying isn't true. The market was never that low. There was never a time where you were going and buying mainstay games. Now, you would have been buying, like, those little offshoot games made by teeny tiny companies. There was, like, a Bible game back in the day that was pretty cheap. You weren't buying any of the mainstay games for that much money. I bought plenty of $20 games. These were used games, not new games. Right. The lawsuit is frivolous. She specifically says from 2016 till now, but says 9 million people. So apparently only 9 million of the tens of millions of people who own Sony products. Yo, what's good, Jay? Love the shirt. Thank you. Who's ordered coffee? Have we had a first coffee order today? We've had a first gifted member. One of Poop Sack's gifted members. Thank you again for doing that, Poop Sack. We are deep in the trenches of the debate. Adon grabbed the first of the 10 memberships. Thank you so much. They're getting really, really spread out for some reason, but they are going. We've researched this. Every gifted membership is going to a member. Unfortunately, some of them are going to people that aren't here, but be encouraged with this. It's going to people that are super loyal. That's why it's doing it that way. So rest assured, if you're spending money to gift members, they're getting it. If you guys are enjoying this content, do me a favor. Smash that like button. I am a safe for work broadcaster. I would love for anybody to take up the position that this lawsuit is legitimate, because I think it's a freaking joke. We haven't gotten a single new sub today. If you haven't hit subscribe so you can talk in my chat. How do I buy coffee? Go to reforgeroast.com, or you can type !coffee, which you just did. Let me put this down in the corner with the commands. A 9-month milestone from Zep. Lono, it's like I'm taking crazy pills. How can anyone think this lawsuit makes sense? It literally doesn't. Like, one lawyer in a series of minutes just basically broke the whole thing down. It's like, yeah, here's the 6 reasons this lawsuit's not going anywhere. Here's the 6 reasons that this lawsuit's going nowhere. Honestly, how can you argue in favor of this? Even someone who isn't a lawyer can see how dumb this is. That's what I'm saying. The whole thing doesn't make any sense. I think a lot of these lawsuits are to bring public awareness to the insane 30% cut these companies take from their marketplaces. I don't understand. YouTube takes 30% of my members and my super chats. They built the infrastructure. They process the payment. They do it all. If you were to build an infrastructure in a storefront and build a platform, and you took 30%, you would literally be in line with the market. What? I don't understand. Why is that the problem, and why does that concern the consumer? Narwaffle with the 4-month milestone. This lawsuit doesn't make any sense at all. Keep seething from entitlement, I guess. Yeah, it's what it sounds like. An entire year milestone for Basido, almost 1 year. No, it told you the wrong amount of months. You just hit 12 months, Basido. Happy we made the right decision on switching the main show to the gaming channel. Hype for Gamescom coverage. Yeah, guys, don't forget, we're going to be doing our own Gamescom coverage today. There's over 400 people here, man. What? Come on. You guys need to help with the likes, okay? I'm going to get grumpy. I'm just kidding. I'm not going to get grumpy. Come on, smash the like button, though. There's way too many people here for the likes to not be over 200. Come on now. Take 2 seconds and minimize the chat and then click the thumbs up. Yo, Bubba J93 grabbed the 2nd gifted membership from Poop Sack. Thank you so much for doing that. If you see that at the top of the chat, click the green box and say allow gift. Fine, I pushed the like button. Thank you. Come on, man. It helps out the video. This is an attack on Sony. This 100% is a PR attack on Sony to make it seem like Sony is doing something wrong that other companies aren't also doing. Like, just the way that it's phrased, it's like, okay, so you guys aren't doing this to Nintendo and Microsoft because they're doing the same thing. Had to switch from the branded account. There you go. The cost of Atari games varied a bit in general. They cost somewhere between $20 and $30. However, you must consider that $20 to $30 then is not the same as it is today. $20 to $30 then would be between $100 to $120 today. Okay, so maybe you bought Atari games for $20 to $30. From the Nintendo on, that was not the price point. And again, Atari games, at the time and the height of their sales, that was like dropping $100 or more dollars on a video game. That's the same inflation rate that we've looked at and seen with respect to $50 and $70 in the late 80s, early 90s. That was like dropping over $100 on a frickin' video game. We are paying way less for games. In the history of video games, we spend less per game than anybody ever did at the dawn of the gaming industry's explosion. We pay way less. $60 to $70 today. They were spending easily $100 or more if you consider inflation. $50 to $70 on every Nintendo cartridge virtually. At Atari games 20 to 30, you're basically dropping $100. I've been mentioning this whole time that I bought games off the shelves that have lost value over time. Generally, I never bought anything at release back when I was younger. Okay, so then you weren't saying anything that had anything to do with the discussion. We were not talking about you buying games that had lost value over time. Buying something on sale. So can I bring that argument to bear? Well, guys, I just bought Face Off starring John Travolta and Nick Cage for $10. It's dropped in value so much. I went to Walmart and there it sat. 2 award-winning actors directed by John Woo. And I mean, $10. I don't understand why DVDs are so expensive. We should be suing these companies. The frick? I bought something on sale. Celeste grabbed one of the gifted memberships from Pooksack. Congrats, Celeste. Thank you again for the gifted members. Guys, you can gift more or grab some if you haven't yet. Have you looked at the site yet? Warning, it's a melter. Yeah, PlayStationYouOweUs.com. It's a freaking PR stunt. PlayStation, you owe us? Listen to this paragraph. Try not to spill your coffee. Try not to spill your coffee. If you don't have coffee, buy some Reforge Roast right now. Listen to this sentence. Listen to this. Gaming is now the biggest entertainment industry in the UK, ahead of TV, video, and music, and many vulnerable people rely on gaming for community and connection. Okay. I love their view of the citizens over there. These poor vulnerable people. They rely on gaming for a community and connection. Okay. The actions of Sony is costing millions of people who can't afford it, particularly when we're in the midst of a cost of living crisis and the consumer purse is being squeezed like never before. None of that's legal. None of that's legalese or a legal argument. It's an emotional argument. Times are tough, and these luxury items are too expensive. That's essentially what that paragraph says. The times are tough, man, and I can't buy my video games. They're too expensive, and it's Sony's fault. What does this have to do with Sony? Yo, TJ Rage with the $5 tip. The only thing Sony owes us is Bloodborne 60 FPS. Preach! James is going to gift 5 memberships. Let's see if these can all get claimed here. Air Drigmore grabbed 1 of Poop Sacks. I believe that's the 4th of the 10. So we've got 6 and 5. We have 11 that still need to be grabbed. I would love Mr. Pink's take. Mr. Pink? About what? Not tipping? Sony PlayStation 4 GameStop will stop selling game download codes to retailers. Yeah, I don't care about that. That's not anti-competitive. It's their product. It's their content. They don't have to let GameStop sell the codes. Categories for abuse. Abusive conduct generally falls into one or both of the following categories. Conduct which exploits the consumers, for example, excessively high prices. Conduct which amounts to exclusionary behavior because it removes or weakens competition from existing competitors or establishes or strengthens entry barriers, thereby removing or weakening potential competition. Dope Shirt Bud, thank you, feed. Yeah, they're not removing anything with their competitors at all. They're not. And they're not overcharging. Yeah, Liza P is... We're going to get a look at Liza P this week, Mo, when we cover the Xbox event. Very excited about that. Yeah, they named it PlayStation You Owe Us. Yeah. Hilly, see my above comment about just how cheap the 30% really is. Lono, imagine what the price of games would look like if every developer and publisher had to have their own platform, shopping storefront, return and validation process, loyalty system, update delivery system, the list goes on. These, Microsoft, Sony, and Nintendo stores actually save us and the devs and the publishers a ton of money, and they only take 30%. Yo, Vinny Vaughn grabbed one of the memberships from James. I love to see it, man. Congrats, Vinny. Guys, keep trying to grab those memberships. That's a great point made by Creature. Imagine trying to build the infrastructure and the marketing required to get people to come to your infrastructure to buy your game. You don't have to do that. You can just throw your game in these digital storefronts, and then they take 30%. 30% of that sale is probably peanuts compared to what you'd have to spend to build an infrastructure big enough to actually get you the quantity of sales that you're going to get on one of these storefronts. People like the litigants are typically beyond reason. I had some guy arguing today that since he bought a console and accessories, he should get all online gaming for free. Bro, go to the bit room. Right. Like, why? Why should you get all those services for free? I bought a TV. I should get Netflix for free. Like, what? No. Like, I bought a television that's a smart TV. I shouldn't have to pay for the internet. Right? Let's argue it another way. I bought a TV, and it's a smart TV. I shouldn't have to pay for internet. It should just get on the internet, and then I would pay, and then I have to pay Netflix if I want. What? No, you have to pay for internet access. That's a service to you that's being provided by a company that services the lines and updates the servers and the firmware and the hardware and everything else. Like, who are these people? I don't understand. I don't get it. I bought a phone that can play music. I shouldn't have to pay for music anymore. I just bought these headphones. I shouldn't have to pay for music anymore. I bought a computer. I shouldn't have to pay for games anymore. Like, what the frick? What? Who are these people? Seems like a lawsuit that comes up to try to brush up controversy. No, I think it's just a PR stunt to get these people's names in lights. It's a absolutely frivolous case. It is a BS case. Nobody this morning has even attempted to legitimize it. Honestly, the thoughtful Microsoft guys aren't going to try and legitimize this because they know Microsoft does all the exact same things. So that the minute they starting to say that like Sony's doing something wrong, they know that they're basically saying that Xbox should also be sued. So nobody with a shred of credibility and intelligence is going to say that this is a good thing, that this suit is right. Yes, the 30% cut is an industry standard, Coral Reefer. Hey, somebody ordered some coffee, a dark roast to Matt. Someone named Matt. Thank you so much for ordering a bag of dark roast. First coffee order of the day. We've only gotten a couple new subscribers today, so it's mostly the core audience. If you're here and enjoying the show and you haven't said anything in chat yet, hit subscribe and join the conversation. Because nobody can refute the fact that the distributor takes a cut. Everybody knows they do. It's basic marketing practice for any business. Hey, you want us to put your product out there? $10 to sit on our shelves. That's exactly right. Has anybody gone to the website, see how it works? I went and left immediately after reading a couple of things. I was like, this is stupid. Hilly says, if Sony have fixed the prices of games sold on the platform digitally, I think the case is interesting and too early to call it stupid. Agree Microsoft does the same. Doesn't make it good. So, but again then, what would make it bad? Like what Creature said, charging them 30% in comparison to what they'd have to pay to build their own infrastructure storefront and to create all of that. Like everything that we had to invest in just to build a storefront to sell you guys coffee. Like, and that's at like the most tiny microcosmic scale. Imagine the scale of exposure you get when you're on one of these platforms. Lono is right. I'm a huge Microsoft fanboy, but I respect the ecosystem, and there's nothing wrong with gouging. JK. I'm a fan of free market pricing. If everyone's at 30, it's 30. Yeah, I don't know why you're putting that in my Discord, Fuzzy. Don't really care about that at all. 100% it's a stunt to get attention for the person involved. They can't honestly think it would get anywhere in court. A 5-minute meeting with a lawyer would tell them that. Even if there is a 10% chance that they win, it's probably worth it. The payout is huge compared to the cost. Oh, if they win? I see what you're saying. Jojo hits a 7-month milestone. Thank you, back in. Epic is 12% because they're trying to compete with Steam with their lackluster launcher. Keep in mind, God Howard, that Epic takes 30% when it's an exclusive because they're recouping the cost that they paid for the exclusive. I think the 30% is only part of it. They are saying they are blocking people from offering discounts for digital games likely to be in violation. But that's not a violation. No. If it's a piece of Sony property, Sony can determine where it is sold because it's theirs. You are not entitled to sell their property. You're not. Like, if I have a store right now, reforgeroast.com. If I want to start selling video game codes, am I entitled to that? No. Because the companies might be like, we have no reason to let you sell digital codes to our games. You're some small YouTuber with a coffee shop. The frick? No. You're not entitled to sell anything because it's theirs. It's theirs. If somebody came to me and said, hey, I would like to start selling your coffee, I'd be like, no, it's mine. What? This doesn't make any sense. The Spy Who Swags up, renewing their membership, jumping back in, thank you. Price fixing. You are if they hold a dominant position. Yes, blocking people from entering the market is illegal in the UK. They're not blocking people from entering the market. That would be like, if Hilly, what you're saying would mean they're blocking Microsoft from selling in the market. That's their competitor. They're not competing with GameStop. That's not a direct competitor. GameStop sells games, and they are not entitled to be able to sell Sony games. Just like Nintendo doesn't have to let them sell digital games. If they don't want to, it's theirs. What do you mean? McDonald's doesn't have to let Burger King sell their stuff. I don't understand what you're even implying. There's no way they're blocking people from entering the market. It's their property. Stop. They are blocking other stores on their platform. How are they blocking other stores by saying, if you want to buy a digital copy of our stuff, you've got to buy it from us? I don't understand how that's blocking other companies. It's theirs. Nintendo's doing the exact same thing. If they somehow are preventing GameStop from offering a discount below a certain level, that's price fixing. No. They could literally say, well, I don't know, UK law might prevent them from saying this. If it's their if it's their product, can they not determine the threshold of price on it? Because that's value perception to the consumer. Hey, you can sell digital codes to our games, but we don't want you to sell them for this much. Because we get a cut of the sale. And so if you go that low, we're not going to make any money on the sale of the product. Like, let's just say they're going to let GameStop sell digital codes for God of War Ragnarok. You can price your own product. That's what I mean. It's their product. It's like, wait, this is God of War Ragnarok. We don't want you selling it for $10. Number one, we wouldn't make what we want to make on it if you did that. They are 100% allowed to set the price of their own dadgum property. It's about third party. So there would have to be legitimate claims that they are going to GameStop and saying, you can't have that third party game be discounted. GameStop would sue them for that, or not. They wouldn't even sue them for that. They would tell them to piss off. They'd be like, wait, you can't tell us what to do. You can set your price, but you can't fix the price of the third party. You can if they're selling your product. The terms would be outlined in the vendor agreement. That's right. If I establish a vendor agreement with somebody who's going to sell Reforge Roast, I can determine a minimum threshold of price because it's mine. I don't want you selling my coffee for $1. You're going to make it look like cheap trash. And we would enter into a vendor agreement, and I would say, no, you can't charge below this threshold. We find that if you charge below this threshold, it's going to be a public devaluation of our product, and consumer perception will be that our coffee is cheap trash. Nerd Mother with an entire year of membership. Thanks for jumping back in. They can discount it because the retailer in question will have already purchased the product. But that's not necessarily true with digital codes, Sinos. They've not purchased anything. They're a distributor of the codes. MSRP does exist for a reason. Right. You don't have to make an agreement with the reseller, but you can. Right, but if you're going to allow someone to do the distribution of digital codes for your games, there's going to be an agreement. Unless they buy a bulk of codes... I suppose if they buy a bulk of codes, they could sell them for whatever they want. But again, Sony has every right to be like, well, no, we don't want you selling God of War Ragnarok below this threshold because, number one, it's going to drive people to your platform instead of our platform. We like people buying stuff on our platform because then they're more likely to buy other things on our platform. We don't want you selling our launch title first-party game for less money than we are. That's counterproductive. Not to mention, it would be really weird. It'd be like, why are we doing this? Pricing parity in the market makes sense. Steam does the same dadgum thing. If you're going to sell your game on Steam and you discount it somewhere else, it's got to be discounted here. We want pricing parity with every other platform that's out there. Because we don't want people feeling like we're overcharging or something. I'm not justifying Steam's contracts. I'm saying that's likely why they argue it. If I understand it correctly, I think that's what CD Keys does. They buy in bulk and they sell cheap. Prices in those instances are determined by cost. No one's going to buy copies of God of War and sell them for less than 70 or whatever. The margins aren't there. Yeah, unless you're like CD Keys and you're hoping to get people to buy other things or the ad revenue. I don't know what the frick. I don't know how they make money on that. Yeah, that's right. Reforge Roast, not cheap trash. Get yours today. Kind of the same strategy we have at Walmart. We want you to shop the store to get you come in to see all the stuff you don't know what you wanted, but you'll buy since you saw it. Yeah, like they'll do loss leaders barrel at a place like Walmart. They'll do loss leaders. Best Buy did this all the time. They would sell the latest album, like when some big star has an album, Justin Bieber has, when he had his big, huge debut album or whatever, they sell it at a loss because they want to get you in the store. So they're literally losing money every time somebody buys that Justin Bieber CD, but they know when you're in there, you might get your kid a new set of speakers, headphones, you might buy a boombox, you might buy, sorry kids, a boombox is a box that you set somewhere, it has speakers attached to it, and you would play music out of it. You might even see somebody carrying one on their shoulder, just in case you didn't understand that phrase that I used. That's what a boombox is. But they would have you come into the Best Buy hoping that you'd spend money on something else. So, it's incredibly unlikely that Sony is somehow dictating to other digital storefronts how much they can sell third-party content for. The only thing Sony could dictate to GameStop is how much they sell or if they sell digital copies of Sony first-party titles. Sony would have no say in the matter. Let's take a third-party game like Call of Duty. If Call of Duty has digital codes for sale that allow you to download it on the PlayStation, that's not something that Sony can dictate anything about because it's not their property. That is something that Activision Blizzard would do. Now, there might be a preemptive contract between Sony and Activision Blizzard with respect to the digital distribution of that product on other sites that will allow the people to get the code to then play it on PlayStation, because PlayStation is going to get a cut of every single one of those code sales. So there likely would still be a threshold of impact where Sony would say, we want to make this amount of percentage. We would really like Call of Duty to never drop below this pricing threshold anytime people buy Call of Duty for our platform. We want pricing parity. That makes sense, right? If you go to buy Call of Duty from a digital storefront and there's a version for PlayStation, there's a version for Xbox, you want pricing parity there. Activision Blizzard would want that pricing parity as well. It would make any sense for it to be cheaper on one platform over another. Sony only controls Sony. They are going to have to name more than one company in this suit and have a sweeping litigation instead of targeted. Does no one ever wonder why digital copies cost as much as hard copies? It makes no sense. They cut out the packaging for the delivering etc. Yeah, but that has nothing to do with you as the consumer, Sebastian. You're still buying the same product. When I buy a digital movie on Amazon, it costs exactly the same as what the DVD does at Target, between $20 and $25. When I go to buy a movie digitally on Amazon, it's not suddenly $10 because, well, I don't have a plastic clamshell in the disc. Why? I'm buying the movie. They want to see the royalty split on that because they've got agreements with the actors and the writers and everything else. Like everybody's getting a cut every time that media is purchased and consumed. Everybody's getting a cut of that. So it stands to reason that they're not going to suddenly be like, oh hey, you get a great discount because you didn't buy a physical item. No, you're essentially buying the exact same thing. You're just admitting to getting fleeced then? How am I getting fleeced when I conveniently sit in the comfort of my home on a winter day with a nice warm cup of Reforge roast and I'm like, give me that video game. Bloop. That's a lot of convenience, isn't it? No gas, no travel time. Didn't have to disrupt my day. Didn't have to go out into the weather and the rain and the cold or the heat in the summer. That's a lot of convenience. But I'm getting fleeced as I comfortably sit and digitally buy a video game and I have it in minutes. Yeah, what if you have to hit parking fees or tolls on the highway to get to the store? You're paying you're paying for convenience. To me, the convenience has way more value than a plastic clamshell and a disc that could potentially get scratched, right? My product is impenetrable to physical damage. It's digital. I don't have to worry about the disc getting scratched or lost. What if my kid misplaces it? What if my kid gets jam on it? Jelly, for those of us in the States. Like, you see what I'm saying? I'm not getting fleeced. I actually get a ton of value that you don't get when you buy the physical item. But you need the internet to be working. You need the internet to be working for almost every game now, even if you buy a physical disc. Do you honestly think most games you can play with just the disc? No, it needs to download or check its DRM, or it has servers that need to be online. Physical disc does not protect you from online games or always online checks. Unless it's like a single player game with no DRM, which those exist, sure, but that's not a representation of the market as a whole. I'm talking digital movies, not games. Sure, but just because there's a requirement of the digital movie doesn't take away from what I'm saying. There's a massive amount of convenience attached to the digital purchase. Can you sell below MSRP? Despite the risks involved, you can sell below MSRP. Retailers can sell the products in their stores at any price they choose. Yet, if you advertise those products, whether in print or online, there's a minimum price at which you can sell the products. The limit is called the minimum advertised price, MAP. The minimum advertised price is part of U.S. antitrust laws that protect manufacturers. While you as a retailer have the complete authority to sell the products on your shelves below the MSRP, you run the risk of severing crucial relationships with your vendors. Selling below the MAP adds the risk of legal action from vendors, which can have devastating consequences for your business. How about your business? Do you sell at or below MSRP? If you continuously sell well below it in hopes of quickly getting rid of inventory, you risk jeopardizing your relationships with your vendors. If you're looking for a way to save money on inventory, buying wholesale can help you cut down on costs without having to sell below MSRP. Those Brodies seriously believe they're owed free services by virtue of paying the entrance fee. Essentially, they argue that buying a mailbox means you should get newspapers and magazine subs for free. Right. They're being aggressive lately? Who is being aggressive? Again, I've said they'll publish, i.e. make games. Their hardware division, particularly the PlayStation brand, won't last. Sega is going to have the last laugh eventually. The PlayStation brand won't last. As the only company to rival their hardware distribution and market saturation is Nintendo. They're the only... Sony's market saturation of hardware is unrivaled with the exception of only Nintendo. So I don't understand how they won't last. It doesn't even make any sense. Like, what market research, what market analysis are you doing to conclude that? Newspapers are generally free to take in many places. You don't have to pay a dime for them in most places. False. That's not true. You can't go into a place of business and just grab a New York Times newspaper or like the local newspaper in your town. That's not true. And what does that even have to do with the argument? If there's some coffee shop that allows you to take the newspapers for free because they buy in bulk and they feel like it's a value to their customer, that's not an industry standard. You can't take them from the library, and you can't take them from most coffee shops and places of business. You have to buy them. And if you're doing it and they're not noticing that you're doing it, you might be stealing. Lono, actually, it has happened where digital download games have been removed from libraries because licensing expirations. What is one game that's been removed from your library because of a license's expiration? You can't play it anymore even though you bought it. When you say it's been removed, are you saying it's been removed from the library like you can't purchase it anymore or you can no longer play it? I know there's games that no longer work because the servers are no longer online, but that's not what we were talking about. And that, again, I feel like people are going off on red herrings that have absolutely nothing to do with this lawsuit. Assassin's Creed? Yeah, it's a DRM issue. They're not taking the game from you or uninstalling it. There's DLC that won't work because it has a DRM check. Not equivalent to what we're talking about. We already covered that. Not the major papers. Metro's a free paper. Yeah, we have free papers like that here. We have like Coffee News or something like that. It's like some dinky little 2-page thing that's printed out. It's a targeted argument. I was speaking more broadly. There are places where newspapers are free to take, but you don't have to pay for it. Depends upon location. Which has nothing to do with the point that my brother was making. My brother was saying that just because you buy this thing doesn't mean you're entitled to this thing. Like, just because you buy a mailbox doesn't mean you're entitled to a newspaper. You invoking the fact that there might be places of business where you can take a newspaper for free is literally idiotic in response to what he said. Like, you're making nonsensical responses to what people are saying. Like, it doesn't even make any sense. That's not, he wasn't saying that there's no way for you to get a free newspaper anywhere. That's not what he was saying. He wasn't making that point. Like, somebody buying a PlayStation and feeling like they don't have to pay to be online or pay any other services or anything after the fact is as dumb as somebody buying a mailbox and thinking they should get a newspaper for free. But you can get newspapers at some coffee shops. You're not responding to what he said. It has nothing to do with what he was saying. Speaking of coffee, just grabbing one now. Hold these peeps. Stop the press. The issue is Sony being sued for... Guys, by the way, we've been live for an hour, and they just told me to run ads. I don't run ads in streams. I think it's too disruptive. So I typically say, hey, can you guys gift members or do super chats? That's a far better way to monetize. Live streams. I think putting ads in the middle of a stream is terrible because it stops the stream and you can't see what's going on. But if Sony made an unfair contract on a developer that caused the game to be a higher price or only available in one or two digital stores at the same price as a consumer, I don't like that. We would need an example of that or been provided with none. And if they did that, Hilly, why would the developer not be suing them? Yo, Mr. T-Rex just grabbed one of the gifted members from James. Like... Number one, there's no proof that they did that, Hilly. And number two, wouldn't that be between the developer? Wouldn't the developer come out and say, yeah, sorry guys, our game is incredibly overpriced on Sony's platform because they're charging us some exorbitant fee and it's affecting the consumer. The consumer has no say in that. Let's say that Sony entered into a contract with a developer and said, we need you to take stamps and buttons and put them into a barrel and send them to us, or we're not going to distribute your game. And they're like, what a weird and arbitrary random ask. We can't do that. Okay, well, if you can't do that, we're going to charge you some exorbitant fee, and that's the only way you're going to be sold on our digital storefront. That's between that developer and Sony. The only way that the consumer has a claim is if that game was exorbitantly priced and they're like, I'm being overcharged because of your contract. We have no evidence of that whatsoever. Because they hold a dominant position, the developer can't bite the hand that feeds them. This is the case that's being made. They're saying, not prove, they're abusing the position, which is BS. They're not, number one, that's not what they're claiming, Hilly. I'm going to read this again. I'm going to read this again incredibly slowly for the people that keep saying what you're saying. PlayStation occupies a dominant position in relation to the digital distribution of PlayStation games. They're not saying that they're entering into abusive contracts with third-party developers. They're saying, well, they hold a dominant position in relation to the digital distribution of PlayStation games. Yeah, you're right. They do. The legal claims Sony is ripping people off by charging a 30% commission on every digital game and in-game purchase made through the PlayStation Store. So that's not a specific contract. They're saying it's all games. So you're actually Butters helping my case here. So Hilly's claim is not what they're claiming. They're not claiming they're overcharging particular developers and creating an instance where their dominant position is leading to higher prices for consumers. That's not true. They are claiming that Sony is charging a 30% commission on every digital game or in-game purchase made through their store, and that's ripping people off. That is a non sequitur. It does not follow. You aren't being ripped off as the consumer because there's a commission on digital games or in-game purchases. Why? Because everybody's doing that, and it hasn't affected the price of games. Game prices haven't gone up, and they're not randomly higher on Sony's platform because of that 30% commission. It's on every game. It's in every deal. The case argues that Sony is in breach of competition law by abusing its market power to impose unfair terms and conditions on game developers and publishers, forcing up prices for consumers. Number one, that's not representative in the market. The prices have not gone up for consumers on digital purchases or in-game purchases on the Sony platform. There's pricing parity in the market. If you buy Call of Duty on Sony, it's the same price on Microsoft. And track with me here. How is it anti-competitive? Let's just grant the illusion, since these people are liars like all of the other Sony haters in the world. They just lie. They're just lying. Let's just grant the illusion. And let's just imagine, we have to imagine this. Let's just imagine a world where a third-party game was more expensive on Sony. That's not anti-competitive. That's stupid. If you could buy Call of Duty for $50 on the Xbox and it was $80 on Sony, that's not anti-competitive. That's dumb. Sony would suddenly be driving their consumers to think, that platform's better. Even if you grant their argument, which is false, it's not anti-competitive. Because third-party games are available on other platforms. This has got to be one of the dumbest lawsuits ever. Like, it doesn't even make any sense. Number one, they're lying. Number two, even if they weren't lying, it's not anti-competitive. What if I don't have an Xbox? Boo frickin' who? What do you mean? It's a luxury item. Buy one. Like, you can't say, oh, it's not about first-party titles, Lono. It's about third-party titles. Okay, I'll grant your point. Look at it from a dev point of view. No, I don't. Not as a consumer. This case is about the consumer. If the devs think that this is an abuse of power, then they have to sue, and they're not doing that. Businesses are allowed to be anti-competitive unless they have a monopoly. Right. So if that was the only place you could get, even that's tough, Zubair, because if it's their property, I just don't know. Like, I just don't know. Like, if they wanted to charge $100 for God of War Ragnarok, I believe they're allowed to do that because it's their property. It's not something that you're entitled to in the market. It's theirs. Like, build a cheap PC and buy from Stolen Cold Marketplace if you're so worried about third-party prices. Right, like, that's what I don't understand is like, number one, they're arguing something that is false. It can't be represented in the market. It can't be. It's not like if you go to their platform, all the third-party titles are massively overpriced when compared to the rest of the market. If the game is on... By the way, oh my gosh. By the way, anytime Sony sells something that's also in Steam, Steam asks for pricing parity so nobody can go below their pricing. So do you honestly think Sony would be raising the prices in that ecosystem? Like, oh, you can buy this game on Steam, or you can buy it on PlayStation, and it's more expensive over there. So they're saying something that's not true. Even if it was true, it's not anti-competitive. It isn't. Let's say that you could rent a movie on Apple TV and Amazon, the same movie, okay? Let's just say you could rent The Matrix. The first movie, you could rent The Matrix on Apple TV or Amazon. And on Amazon, it was $15 more expensive. You can't claim that's anti-competitive. It's literally available in two places, which means there's no monopoly, and they're charging more, which would quite literally be not in favor of the competition toward Amazon. It would favor Apple. Like, that's the whole point. The whole reason that people have said Walmart's presence is anti-competitive because Walmart comes in and basically bullies mom and pop shops out of business because they hit a threshold that smaller businesses can't hit, and their prices are so incredibly low that the other companies can't compete. Now I'm supposed to believe if a platform mysteriously and completely imagined here, if Sony is charging more for third-party titles, that's anti-competitive. That would not be anti-competitive. If McDonald's suddenly started charging $10 for every cheeseburger, that's not anti-competitive. That would drive you to Wendy's and Burger King because they're charging more for something you can get somewhere else. Apple does it. They charge for stuff that's available in other places. Yeah, and that's completely fine if that's what they want to do. Anti-competitive is undercutting the competition. Right. You can say they don't have a case against Sony, that's fine, but when consumers see this, they don't hear the full details, and it just makes Sony look bad. That's exactly right. This is a anti-Sony PR stunt to make Sony look bad. Well, Sony takes 30% commission. So does every other platform. Moneybag with a $5 tip through Super Chat. The problem is you can only buy third-party digital games only on the PlayStation Store and nowhere else. That's anti-competitive. No, it's not. You've smuggled that in because PlayStation is not in competition with GameStop. So if PlayStation says we don't want digital codes sold on other storefronts, they don't have to let you do that. As far as we know from the research done this morning, which you were here for this, so you seem to be smuggling this in and ignoring the point that people made, you can go to websites right now and buy digital codes for games on that platform. So that's not true either. Another thing that isn't accurate. I'm agreeing with your logic in terms of pricing for base games, but what about microtransactions? Does Sony and everyone else also charge 30% on that too? Yes. Yes, anything sold in their storefront, they get a 30% cut. Whether you're buying a skin or DLC. You can buy gift cards, not game codes. Okay. Yeah, that doesn't matter. That doesn't matter. Sony does not have to let GameStop sell digital codes. That point is superfluous. That is not what this case is saying. You're adding something that's not here. You're smuggling that in because you're trying to somehow maintain this idea that this case is legitimate. That's not what this case is stating. And even then, they're not in competition with GameStop. They don't have to let GameStop sell digital codes for their platform. GameStop's not entitled to that. So you're telling me if I want to buy a digital version of Call of Duty, I can't do it on Amazon? I have to go into the Sony store? Yeah. Like, so the frick what? That's not anti-competitive. They don't have to let that be sold there. It's a digital transaction in their storefront, redeemable on their platform. They don't have to let it be sold everywhere. They're not pressured to do that. It's theirs. Same thing with Nintendo. Loney, this topic ain't worth the blood pressure increase. Just say, first place, and chuck some suitcases. It could be considered anti-competitive if you look at it from the point of view that the dev who has to give up 30% profit to access the PlayStation chunk of the market. No, Kareem, that's already been addressed by Creature rather brilliantly. If that developer wanted to create their own storefront infrastructure, their own ability to process transactions in high quantities, as well as have infrastructure built for chargebacks, refunds, etc., any of those problems, and as far as the marketing dollars they'd have to spend to establish that footprint and get the same number of sales, it pales in that actually the 30% pales in comparison to what they'd have to spend. You're talking about 120 million potential consumers and a storefront that's already been built. Everything's already been built and structured and established, and it's there ready and waiting for those shelves. Just like if you suddenly brokered a deal with Walmart, if I suddenly had Reforge Roast available in Walmart or Kroger, do you actually frickin' think that I'd be like, oh my gosh, they want to charge me 30%? No, I'd be like, oh my gosh. You built this massive footprint and you have stores everywhere, and the number of eyeballs that's going to see my product every day, are you freaking kidding me? You know how much money I'd have to spend to have that market reach, to have that infrastructure of potential sales? Gee, many freaking Christmas, that would cost me millions. It's a deal. Like, if I made a video game that was even marginally successful and Nintendo's like, we're going to take a 30% cut, I'd be like, go ahead! Do it! I'll get a tattoo of 30% on my shoulder while I'm sipping a drink on a beach and retire. Are you kidding me? 30% when you get to enter these marketplaces? What? That's a deal. People don't realize why these console platforms don't have competing stores. It's not viable for third parties or their consumers. Yeah, because you know what's funny? This is the grand freaking irony right now. If they didn't charge them the 30% and these individual developers and publishers had to establish their own storefronts, the cost of games would go up, not down. So the 30%, ironically, is probably helping you buy games for $60 in 2022. Because if every publisher and developer had to build their own storefront and spend all that money on marketing to really get the same footprint and reach that they get on a Sony storefront, Microsoft storefront, or a Nintendo storefront, all the money that they would spend to do that, they'd have to recoup it, and they'd pass that on to you, and you'd be spending more for the video games. It's the Walmart versus the mom and pop. It's the same idea. The mom and pop shop has to charge you more for the hammer than Home Depot or Walmart because they don't have the reach and the footprint. They don't have the ability to buy in bulk like they do. So they have to pass all those prices of operation on to you. Same thing with the restaurant. The reason when you go to a local restaurant and you pay more for the food, it's because they don't have the reach, they don't have the ability to buy food in bulk the way some of the major chains do. So that cost is passed on to you as the consumer. So if the consumer wants to sit here and be like, I can't believe they charge 30% to be in their storefront, PlayStation can be like, fine, make every developer and publisher build their own storefront and have all this cost, investment, infrastructure, research, and marketing, and all those dollars they spend, they're going to pass on the cost to you. So enjoy buying games for $100, you entitled babies. Jacked up my rant at the end. Frick. That was a good one. That's the grand irony of this situation. You'd be paying more for games if all these companies had to build their own digital storefronts. Scroll up to 30 plus accounts, says Eugene. Imagine having 30 plus accounts because you're buying from devs or third-party stores, and those accounts need to be tied to your PSN account. And then if you delete a game, you have to know which store. Yeah, which store you got it from. Hopefully you have the login, and then hope it hasn't been defunct. Yeah, think about the convenience of it all in one location. All the games in one location, whether it's Steam or Sony or Microsoft. It's all in one location. That's a massive, massive consumer benefit. Thank you guys for the 300 likes. Let's get some gifted members. Thanks for the views today. I think we're primarily streaming to the main audience once again. It's so weird when we're not live, the video gets treated better. It's so odd. Can't believe people are pointing the finger at entitled gamers. Gamers ain't even bringing the lawsuit. It's a corporate entity taking a gamble. Well, sure, John, but there's plenty of people that are there are plenty of people. There are people here this morning saying it. The 30%'s greedy and it's so mean to the dev. Like, what? Like, think about that with YouTube. YouTube takes 30% of my super chats and my members. And you know why I accept that? Because they built the infrastructure. Where else could I boot up and talk and potentially meet people across the globe who want to support my show? Where else could I do that? I would never have the reach and discoverability that I have on YouTube, instantaneous. Boot up and say, hey YouTube, I'm going to be talking about Sony sued for $5 billion. Okay, whoop, and they shove me out there into the world. Yeah, and Purple takes 50%. The Purple platform takes 50%, unless they're a bigger streamer and they've renegotiated for 70-30 split. If they've argued for the better split, they do 70-30 or they do 50-50. That's how it works over there. Why does Purple take 50? Because they can. Yeah, it's their platform. It's their platform. Are you going to try and argue that, like, they don't deserve the 50%? What do you mean? They built the ingest servers. They built the platform. They spent on marketing. They try to put themselves in places of discoverability to get more people, so new user acquisition goes up on the platform, so more potential sales come to you, and they're doing all that. You don't have to do that. You don't have to market that platform. You don't have to market getting new user acquisition. You don't have to broker deals with companies to try to get drops, right? These game development companies that negotiate and broker drops with the Purple platform. You're not doing that out there. You're not going out there and pounding the pavement and brokering those deals and getting those contracts signed. No, and yet it all benefits you. So sure, 50% sounds steep, but they're doing an awful lot. Sony's out here spending money on the hardware, distributing the hardware, selling the hardware at a loss. They've got marketing, they've got campaigns. They're doing all that to bolster that audience. Boop, 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 boop. Get more and more people in the funnel. Get more and more people accustomed to being in the store or being on their subscription service. And then if you want to be in their store, they're going to take 30%. They built all of that and you didn't. It's justifiable. It's completely justifiable Because in order for an individual developer to mimic that reach, that market awareness, that potential market saturation in sales, the potential conversion, in order for every developer to mimic the reach of the Sony store, the Microsoft store, or the Nintendo store, they would go bankrupt because they wouldn't be able to get the money. They'd go to the bank and try and borrow it, and they'd be like, no, because the ROI is completely unlikely. It's not a tenable business strategy. Can't do it. Bros are literally out here saying that Steam is free, so Microsoft and Sony should offer more free stuff, completely ignoring Steam does have subscription tiers and have published like one good game in a decade. Steam also makes it really, really hard for people to have their game elsewhere. 3 search examples. Fat Princess Adventures, the PT demo by Kojima. Okay, PT demo by Kojima is a terrible example. And PlayStation Store movies. These cannot be downloaded anymore because they're removed from your library. Okay. So that's not indicative of a market standard thing, especially the PT demo. So that doesn't support your claim. It doesn't support your claim because there's far more presence of market standard right now that if you go buy a physical item of a game, you don't actually own it and you don't actually have the ability to play it without the internet. That's becoming more standard. So the superiority of buying physical over digital is not compelling at all. It isn't. Day one patches, DRM, server checks, the need to be online to play some of the modes. Some of these games are literally online all the time. It is justifiable that these petty gamers are just stuck with the entitlement mindset. If you don't like it, join someone else. Amazon's a little different. They sell so many things across so many platforms, they don't need to charge as much, and they still make bank off commission. Yeah, I'm pretty sure the PT demo is free. Would you say that if tomorrow Microsoft, Nintendo, and Sony all charge 90%, are you sure that the 30% isn't the price fix you're claiming it isn't? Okay. So that would be called... I'm not an economist, so I'm going to use my own phrasing. That would be called anti-equilibrium. Yeah, there's a Jeff Keighley show today. We will be co-streaming it. We are one of the official co-streamers of Gamescom opening game night. We got our co-streaming kit from Keighley last night. I like working with that organization. Anything they do, we officially co-stream, and we are one of their official co-streamers. So here's the thing. Wonder what finally tipped this? Purple will now let partners stream on YouTube and Facebook. Yeah, they don't want people leaving anymore. I literally told people that was going to happen. I've got a video that's unlisted where I said the Purple platform is going to let people do that. Because if not, they're going to continue to bleed talent. It's the only way to keep people from leaving now. It's not the only way. It's one of the better ways to keep it from leaving. Mid-tier streamers are where they make all their money, and mid-tier streamers are starting to consider leaving. I told you guys that Purple was going to do that. I totally freaking called it. I said, that's what they're going to have to do. Because they make money on the mid-tiers. People are so reading that announcement wrong. How are they reading the announcement wrong? The Verge has it wrong. It's cool, but it's limited. To clarify, we do not allow simulcasting on web-based Purple-like services that support streaming for extended periods of time, such as YouTube and Facebook, because we believe engaging with two streams at once can lead to suboptimal experiences for your community. However, we know many of you want to use other services to grow your community, so simulcasting on short-form mobile services like TikTok, Instagram, and Live is allowed. Wait, but hang on. Multicasting is limited, but could they do a show in the morning on Purple and a show in the evening on YouTube? Because I know there's people that would do that. Are they allowing you to stream on YouTube as a partner? It just can't be simulcasted. That's the question I have. Yes, they're allowing that. Yeah, that's a huge step forward. That's a huge step forward. Think about that, man. I'm about to hit him with the request. Like, hey, let me back over there. Stands to reason. Clarification is you can stream on YouTube and Purple, but you can't dual stream. Yeah, that's fine. That would be counterproductive. I agree with that, actually. I actually agree with that. Anyway, that's a sidebar issue. Lono, I'm not saying it's an industry standard. I'm just saying it can happen. Which is why if I'm able to keep my physical copies. T-Bone, the problem is though, your physical copies are not all equal. I could 100% understand, T-Bone, somebody saying, I bought the physical edition of Ghost of Tsushima so that I can always play it. I can boot up without the internet and install this game as long as I have a PS5 in working order with a disc drive. I can play this game in 15 years if I want. I don't ever have to worry about it going away. I understand that, but the lion's share of games are not in that category anymore. They're not in that category anymore. Because the lion's share of the games are you gotta have an online check. Yeah, assuming the disc contains the entire game. Yeah, if it needs to download anything to run. Yeah, if it doesn't contain the entire game, that's right. So it has to be a game like Ghost of Tsushima that you don't need the internet for, and you never need the internet. So even if it just needs the internet to download the rest of the game, you're stuck. Your physical item means nothing. If they remove it, is my point. So do we know of a digital game platform that doesn't charge $30? The Epic Game Store does not charge $30 unless it's an exclusive title. They charge 12%, and if they enter an exclusivity agreement, then they charge the $30 because they're giving money to that company and they want to recoup it faster, which I think is completely legitimate. Yeah, and everybody ignores the facts that discs and disk drives fails 10 to 12, 20 years max. Yeah, if you have a working PS5 disk drive in 15 years, you're going to be one of the lucky ones. They just wear out. It's a motor. It's a motor with pieces that wear out. That's just the facts. Shut up after some internet issues. What did Sony do? Sony didn't do anything. Sony's being sued, and what I'm seeing is a just completely joke of a lawsuit. It just seems absolutely ridiculous. I don't see it as being a legitimate lawsuit in any respect of the term. Yeah, the first Descendant looks very good. It was originally called Project Magnum, and we are watching it. There is an open beta that we have applied to be a part of that starts October 25th, I think. October 25th. October 24th to the 25th or something to that. It's somewhere in October, late October is when the first Descendant beta kicks off. We're getting a great click rate on this. We're getting great suggest. If you clicked on this thumbnail because you saw my video suggested or I was on your homepage, thank you so much for being here. Sadly, all those people that did that are either already subscribed or haven't subscribed. I would have expected a lot more people to subscribe. Maybe they did not like my take on this. I don't know. We're getting actually a really great click rate today. So a lot of you may have clicked and haven't chimed in the chat. If you want to talk in my chat, hit subscribe. If you're not logged in, get logged in so you can hit subscribe. Subscribing is totally free, and I'm a Safe for Work broadcaster, so you can have me in the background of your day all throughout the week. I do multiple shows a day. Our second show today is about Cyberpunk, and then we will be covering Gamescom at 2 p.m. Eastern. We will be co-streaming it. Imagine this was all orchestrated, some market penetration scheme. Maybe Sony learned that negative energy is the currency they need to use right now. Epic offers 12%, and multiple devs have essentially come out and said Epic is essentially a marketing black hole. Yeah, Epic doesn't do anything for them. Going over there, it doesn't do anything for them. It's a non-starter right now. It might be profitable in 10 years or something. Got a couple of meetings coming up. Gonna have to dip out for a bit. Catch you later. All right. When you can only buy Sony games on the Sony store, you're then locked in and they can charge whatever they like. This is why they're getting sued. You can't do what Sony are trying to do. Sure you can. Nintendo does it. Plenty of places do it. It's their property. They can charge whatever the frick they want. You are demonstrably wrong. If you create a product, if you create property and you sell it on your storefront, you can charge whatever the frick you want. I could charge you $1,000 for every bag of Reforge roast. Because it's mine. I paid for this. This is mine. I paid for this. I can charge you whatever the frick I want. They don't make all the games. We already addressed the third-party agreement. They do not have to allow you to buy codes for their platform everywhere. That's not true. Because they're not in competition with GameStop. To try to claim that Sony's in competition with GameStop is a literal joke of an argument that I would love to see you attempt to make. It's not anti-competitive to say we don't want digital codes for games sold elsewhere. We don't. Also, it has not been demonstrated in the lawsuit or by anybody here today that when you go and buy a third-party game on Sony, it's more expensive, because that's what the lawsuit alleges. Prove it. Prove it. Impetus is on you. To make the claim they are ripping people off and it's anti-competitive, okay, prove it. And I can't wait for you to prove it, because if you do prove it, you're actually proving something that's not anti-competitive. The argument isn't that, though. The argument is, why do they get to take a 30% cut of the product? Sinos, it's really exhausting when someone's been in chat and claims there's not been an argument about something that I've stated 10 times over. It's really, really freaking irritating. You've been here, and I've outlined exactly why they and Microsoft and Nintendo and Steam all have a right to charge the 30%. And to claim that the argument is, why do they get to make a 30% cut of the product? I've argued why they get to make that cut 10 times over. Like, as I said, if I suddenly entered into an agreement with Kroger and Reforge Roast was going to be sold in Kroger, they would get a cut. Why? Because they have a store, they have a footprint, they have a market reach, they have something that I don't. They built it. So they get a cut of every bag of this that gets sold. The Sony storefront, the Sony reach, the market saturation of the console, all of that is something that Sony has invested in. Same with Steam and Nintendo and Microsoft. They have every right to take a commission of sales on their platforms. Sony is the only storefront on Sony. Same with Microsoft and Nintendo. Sue them too. Sue them too. Platform access, distribution, market access. It's like saying he'd lose the majority of his profit from his coffee on the level of reach he'd get by selling in Walmart. Yeah, I would take a cut. I would take a smaller profit margin. Why? Because I would sell way more bags. So my margin per bag would go down, probably, because a cut would go to Walmart, but my quantity would go way up. If I went down to only making, like, $3 a bag or something like that, wow, that's, whew, this is pretty good. That's, I'm sorry, that's pretty low. $3 a bag, that's a pretty small margin. That's not very much money per bag. But if Walmart's projections are that I would sell 1 million bags in a year, sign that contract before the freaking pen was out. I would sign it with blood. I'd cut my finger, let me sign. $3 a bag and I'm gonna sell 1 million in a year. Yeah, sure. Take the cut. I don't freaking care. I'm never gonna get that level of market reach on my own. The marketing budget and the distribution costs alone, I wouldn't be able to afford it. Let's drag Microsoft into the lawsuit and watch how fast it goes away. Why do these knuckleheads think developers are entering into these agreements in the first place? They know the reach, saturation, and accessibility these storefronts have. It's smart business. You're welcome for the example. Well, I mean, I gave the example moments ago. Maybe you weren't here. I already gave the example of if all of a sudden my coffee was in Kroger, I would enter into an agreement with them where they would get a cut because they have massive reach and they have stores, and there'd be so many customer eyeballs on my coffee that isn't there, and I could never get that on my own. Barrel Gaming with a $10 tip through Super Chat. Easy. That's their profit model. We make the store, you put your stuff on my store, I sell your stuff, I get a cut, you get the rest. Simple. That's exactly right. As a seller, you get that convenience. You're paying for all the access that would be a Sisyphean labor on your own. Sisyphean labor. I love that. Sisyphus, the myth of the Greek myth of Sisyphus pushing the rock up and the rock rolls back down. Some of you aren't considering the business mechanics behind the scenes. Yeah, not at all. It's just Sony greedy, 30%, they don't have a right. Okay, well, Steam, Nintendo, and Microsoft all do it, and their market reach is so incredible that none of these game companies would be able to do that. And I made the point earlier that if every single game company had to spend the money to build their own storefront and had to spend the marketing dollars to have the same reach of a Sony platform or a Nintendo platform or a Microsoft platform, all the money spent on marketing their storefront and establishing that would mean you would get charged more money per game. So the grand freaking irony is that Sony and Steam and Microsoft and Nintendo charging a 30% commission is probably helping to keep the cost of games down for you. It's not raising the prices of games, it's keeping them down. I bought Nintendo cartridges before $50 to $70, and I'm buying games now in that same price range. 20 years later. It's costing me less money now to buy games than back then. Because of inflation, back then you were basically dropping around $100 to $120 a game, and I'm spending about half that. It's cheaper for me to buy games now. You cannot, if you look at inflation and basic economics and the cost of games that we have right now, you cannot argue that we're being overcharged and it's so expensive to buy games. No, it's actually more affordable than ever to be a gamer. You can sell your widgets on your own and get 100,000 people, or you can give up 30% of the cut and reach 100 million people. Simple math answers the quandary. That's exactly right. Sony are keeping the prices low with taking 30%. Okay, small, medium, and large businesses operate under very different legislation. But Sony's not the only one taking the 30%. They're all taking the 30%. 30 years later, game prices have been absurdly stable over the decades, like basic math, but still a bit mind-boggling. Hey, Lono, I'm a bit late today, but what's the short gist of the suit? Doesn't everyone take a 30% cut from their store? How does this affect the customer more than the devs anyway? It doesn't. You can go sell your game right now on the Epic Store, and they only take 12%. And guess what? The devs get more of the money. They don't give you a discount. It's already demonstrated in the market that if the storefront takes a smaller percentage, they don't pass on the savings to you because they don't give a frick about you. They want to make money. They're not like, we love the consumer so much, Epic's only taking 12%. Let's pass on the savings to the consumer so we make less money on the thing that we work so hard on, because it's really hard to be a gamer these days. No, they're not going to pass on the savings to you. If Sony suddenly said, we want to enter into a more virtuous cycle with our third-party contracts and developers on our platform, we are only going to charge 20% commission on everything sold in our storefront. Do you know what the devs and the publishers would say? Great! More money for us! They wouldn't pass it on to you. They don't give a frick about you. Their shareholders would sue them if they did that. What are you doing? What are you doing? You just entered into a more lucrative contract with Sony, the second highest saturated console in the market, and you're going to discount your games and make less profit? We're going to sue you. You have a fiduciary duty to us to increase share volume. What are you doing? They wouldn't even be able to do it. Why should we care about them or if they make a single cent as long as it benefits us? The answer, I don't care, and that's every developer, not even the good ones. I want the developers to make buckets of cash because I want them to keep making games. If the market's healthy and profitable, they'll keep making games. If it gets strained and choked and doesn't make good profit, then they'll walk away. They'll make mobile games. Developers, do you make buckets of cash? No, developer margins are actually not that great. Publishers make buckets of cash. You knew before you bought the console that you couldn't buy digital content anywhere else. You signed up for it. Yeah. Yeah, it's not a looky-loo. Windows Store version, £35 with a 12% fee. Guess what it costs? £35 on the Xbox with a 30% fee. Customer saves nothing. Yeah, here's an example from Paul. You can buy it in the Windows Store, Call of Duty Modern Warfare Remastered, and it's only a 12% fee, and the Microsoft Store takes a 30% fee. The customer saves nothing. That's a good point. I don't think people realize that if we exert the level of consumer entitlement on the industry, we will choke the industry and not have an industry. I've continued to say that if we continue to get out the bat every time a company wants to have monetization, every time a company wants to have microtransactions, and we want to act like they've insulted our entire family lineage and did something that's just indefensible, every time we do that, we drive more and more developers to consider just switching to full-time mobile games. Because they make money hand over fist there. They don't have to worry about a bunch of whiny babies saying that, you know, well, I paid $50 for the game, so I shouldn't have to do, I shouldn't have to spend any money ever again in the game. That, like, that's the point, is if you're, like, they're going to start looking at games like Diablo Immortal and other games and being like, let's just do that. That market accepts microtransaction and says, yes, more daddy. And these guys over here are just constantly going, give me more money, daddy. Who do you want to interact with? Like, who do you want to make games for? Why is any consumer taking a case to a business? Now, baby, you're entitled. Sony can fight their own battles? Because to look at the cost of gaming right now and to say that it's people are being overcharged, what was the language they used? They used this language. Where is it? They have been unwittingly overcharged. That's a lie. You're being a liar. I'm going to call you an entitled baby because you're saying something that's unsubstantiated. Show me evidence that Sony consumers have been unwittingly overcharged. How? There's pricing parity between all the platforms. So is it about the third-party games? You guys kept telling me it was about the third-party games, right? There's pricing parity between the Microsoft and the Sony and the PC platform. Games cost the same on every platform. No matter what the game is, all the third-party games cost the same. So please demonstrate how they were unwittingly overcharged. How? How is Sony, quote-unquote, ripped off its customers? If you're going to use language like unwittingly overcharged and ripped off its customers and many vulnerable people rely on gaming for community connection and we're in the midst of a cost of living crisis and the consumer's purse is being squeezed like no other, yeah, I'm going to call you an entitled baby. You think during the Depression they were like, you know, the cost to go to a picture show is just too expensive. No, they were trying to eat. Like, You think during the Depression, you think my grandparents were just incensed at the fact that it was too expensive to go to the picture shows, to go to the movies. No, they were trying to survive. So if times are tough, if we're going through economic recessions and people are having a hard time paying their bills and having to tighten their belts and they're struggling to put food on the table, why the frick would those people be worried about buying video games? Do you honestly think, like, if I fell on hard times and was struggling to make ends meet and provide for my 2 children and my wife, do you think I'd be sitting here being like, I can't believe Sony charges 30% for these digital games that I'm buying? No! I'd have like 3 jobs and no sleep and 0 time to play video games. Like, what the frick world do you live in where when times are tough, like, that's what you're going to complain about? And to blame it on a 30% commission charge that everybody in the industry charges. So yeah, they're entitled babies. The 30% is fine. Ban on other selling is not fine. Disagree. You haven't demonstrated how Sony and GameStop are competitive. You haven't. You haven't demonstrated that. You haven't demonstrated how a gaming platform is in competition with a gaming storefront. You haven't demonstrated that. You simply haven't. Like if Coca-Cola wanted to open up a Coke store and they just decided, you know what, we're no longer going to be selling Coke in Kroger. We just don't want to. We don't like working with that vendor. They have every right to do that. It's theirs. Oh, well, what about third party? What about third party? Again, it's hard to create an analogy because you're going to a gaming platform and you're like, I would like to play this game on your platform, but I want to buy it from somebody else. Why are you entitled to that? Why are you entitled to that? I would like to buy this movie and own it and stream it on Amazon's infrastructure, but I want to be able to buy it digitally from this other storefront. Why? What? So does Amazon owe you that ability? Should you be able to go and buy a digital code to watch The Matrix on Amazon, and should you be able to buy that digital code somewhere else? Streaming is different. Why is it different? It's not streaming. No, I own that movie on the Amazon infrastructure. I can go watch Spider-Man right now. I bought it on Amazon. I can go watch it there right now. I bought it. It's no different, homie, than buying a digital game. It's a one-to-one analogy. I own and can watch Spider-Man digitally. I own and can play Ghost of Tsushima digitally. I bought them both through a digital storefront. Why am I entitled to buy Spider-Man digitally on Amazon somewhere else? You've got to demonstrate that for me, because Amazon is a platform where I can watch that movie. Sony is a platform where I can play video games. Why in the blue frick do you think you have a right to go to some other storefront to buy that digital item? Why? You have to demonstrate that, because plenty of platforms do this. Sony's not, like, unique in this regard. If you want to buy a third-party game, or a third-party movie, something that Amazon and Apple doesn't own, right? It's not something that Amazon owns. It's not one of their movies or their shows. It's not Wheel of Time or The Rings of Power. And you want to buy that movie or show and watch it on Amazon, you buy it from Amazon, because it's their platform. And if Amazon was like, we don't want digital codes for movies and shows that we have on our ecosystem, we don't want you to be able to, like, go buy them somewhere else. They have every right to say that. It sounds like a standard Twitter internet take entitled Baby ETC. If you think the following 1 hour and 52 minutes of my content is basically a Twitter internet take because I've used the words entitled and baby, I'm sorry that my dialogue, argumentation, and logical approach to this, albeit very passionate, is falling so incredibly short, Hilly. I wonder how many YouTubers approach these topics and content the way that I have this morning. I see where this is coming from. Steam allows you to activate a game key you got somewhere else on your library in their platform. Yes, and many of those companies that sell those keys have been criticized and have been exposed for not being very good for the industry. Because of the revenue share and the revenue split with the developer. It's been demonstrated that a lot of those outlets are not good for the industry. How do you think these storefronts gain the ability to sell these video games? These storefronts don't have a platform to play video games on. Amazon should be 100% required to allow Walmart to sell digital codes to Amazon Prime Shop. That's what I'm saying. Like, we don't argue this in any other avenue. It doesn't make any sense. I can answer that one. They're all out there roaring about poor gamers. Most YouTubers jumped on the bandwagon calling Sony a big evil gaming bad guy. Yeah, because dishonesty and hate clicks move things along. Yang Ya's coverage was very good. I thought Yang Ya's coverage was excellent. He read through it all. He said, I don't understand why Sony's being singled out. He read through the lawyer's response and said, this case doesn't feel like it's very strong. He didn't say Sony was evil. He didn't say that the lawsuit was stupid like I did. But he definitely was like, yeah, this doesn't seem like it's going anywhere. Why is Sony being singled out for something every other company does? So I thought Yang's coverage was perfectly fine. He was the only one I watched this morning on it. I don't have time to watch, everybody. I watched him at 1.5. He's pretty easy to understand even at a higher speed. He has to clean up the clutter behind him. Oh, I like it. You go for the biggest one first, then the rest will fall. So here's the problem with their court case, Raymond. They're arguing for the consumers. They're arguing that consumers are entitled to a certain cut of money. And you know what's funny? They're arguing it by saying that Sony is abusing their power by charging developers 30%. So, if there's a slim chance that they're successful, which they won't be, don't you think that the case would then actually award money to the developers and not the consumers? Because it could be demonstrated in the market right now that other storefronts take a smaller percentage and they don't lower the prices of the games. So it stands to reason that if this court case goes forward and they win, consumers get nothing. And the developers would be basically compensated back on the 30% that Sony takes, which would then create case law for Nintendo and Microsoft to also be sued. We're talking about trillions of dollars that would have to then be distributed to all these developers who have been charged a 30% commission fee for selling in their stores, which would then potentially create tangential case law that would allow every single vendor contract to claim that you're overcharging us these fees to sell our stuff in your Walmarts, your Krogers, and your Targets. This kind of thing's going to go nowhere. Yeah, the consumer was never part of this agreement. Exactly. It's the most sloppily argued legal case I've ever seen. It's like you're arguing that the consumers owed money. How are you arguing it? By claiming that the developers were overcharged. What? So, but then the developers would be owed money, not the consumer. Why? Because the consumer spent the same amount per item that they would have on any other platform. It doesn't even make any sense. It's like the consumer is entitled to nothing here because you haven't demonstrated that they've paid more on the Sony platform than other platforms. There's a pricing parity in these digital marketplaces. If you go and buy a game on Sony, it's the same price everywhere. And even if you demonstrated that it was higher on the Sony platform, you'd then have to demonstrate it was because of the 30% and not just because Sony doesn't discount or some other platform did a sale. And even if you did argue that successfully, you'd then be essentially arguing that Sony's driving consumers away from them because you're talking about third-party software that can be purchased elsewhere. Therefore, that's not anti-competitive. It isn't. If I can buy Call of Duty in both places, that's not anti-competitive for Sony to charge me more. It would be business. It wouldn't be very business savvy. It'd be pretty stupid because you're basically making me feel like your platform is not the platform that I want to be on if I can buy games like Call of Duty cheaper elsewhere. So if it's about third-party games, you can't claim that an increase in price is anti-competitive. Do you see what I'm saying? If they successfully argue any of their legal points, the whole freaking case falls apart. If you successfully argue that the 30% is overcharging the developers, that has nothing to do with the consumer. If you successfully demonstrate that the consumer has been overcharged for third-party games, you haven't demonstrated something that's anti-competitive because those third-party games are available on other platforms. Therefore, you've just argued that Sony is not being anti-competitive. They're being business stupid because they're driving people to buy that platform, that game, on another platform. Anything that they attempt to demonstrate, if they successfully demonstrate it, their case falls apart. And they can't demonstrate any of these things because they're lies. It's not true. Nothing costs more on Sony's platform. No, there's no third-party games, third-party DLC, or third-party microtransactions that cost more on Sony's platform. 30% is overcharging, but they're demonstrating it falls. It's not overcharging. That's subjective to your feeling. It could be demonstrated that it's well worth the money to give 30% to a platform that has a reach and a marketing saturation that you could never buy without spending billions or millions of dollars in marketing, building your own storefront and your own infrastructure. It stands to reason that the benefit of being on a storefront of that size and the marketing reach of a console saturation of that size, that 30% is peanuts in comparison to what you'd have to spend if you had to do your own building of a storefront and marketing to reach 120-something million potential consumers. $30% now, what happens when it's 50, 80%, 120? At what point do you realize what you're saying is wrong? At what point do you realize you've lost the argument and slippery slope is an argumentative fallacy, so you've conceded that you've lost the argument? What happens when it goes to 50 and 80? That's a fallacious way to argue. That's slippery slope. Slippery slope is quite literally an argumentative fallacy. You haven't substantiated the wrongness of the 30% by presuming that it might go to 50. That's illogical. It's not logically sound. It's a fallacy. The market determines whether or not that 30% cut is acceptable. And it's been on every platform, and developers are entering into it. They're entering into the deal. Just like if Walmart came to me and said, we'll put Reforge Roast in our storefronts, we're going to be pretty aggressive on the revenue share, you're only going to make $2 to $3 a bag. And I would say, can we get a projection on potential sales, low end, medium end, and high end? Like, on average, how much of my coffee do you think you're going to sell? And if they calculated the numbers, and I'm like, oh, you're going to sell potentially anywhere from 500,000 to 1 million bags of coffee, but I'm only going to make $2 a bag, I will take your aggressive revenue split because that amount of quantity I would never hit on my own. That's the point. The market's allowing it because the reach, saturation, and potential sales of being shoved on a Nintendo storefront, Microsoft storefront, or Sony storefront is bigger than anything these companies could create on their own. They would never be able to do it. It's not financially viable. If they have a monopoly, they can charge what they like because the devs can't go anywhere else. You'd have to demonstrate that Sony has a monopoly. That's not been demonstrated. You'd have to demonstrate that Sony currently has a monopoly, and they do not. On third-party games, they don't have a monopoly. You can buy third-party games on Sony, Microsoft, and PC. Sometimes even the Switch. You have to demonstrate they have a monopoly, and you haven't done that. That's because if you're going to claim anti-competitive, you'd have to demonstrate that they have a monopoly. Then you have to demonstrate they're using that monopoly to overcharge. You'd have to demonstrate monopoly. You have to demonstrate abuse of that, and then you'd have to demonstrate in what ways that's damaged the consumer. You have to measure the damage to the consumer, class action lawsuit, charge them. Then you'd also have to get the developers involved and the other competitors involved to say we've lost X amount of dollars because of this monopoly that they've had on the market, and that's not been demonstrated because you can't demonstrate it. You simply can't demonstrate a monopoly with respect to Sony. In which case, I'll shut up. I thought third party was being forced to sell on Sony only. Frostbite, the only thing that's been substantiated is that if I want to buy a digital code for Call of Duty on my PlayStation, I have to go to PlayStation for it. I can't go to GameStop for it. There's nothing anti-competitive about that. If we used an analogy, if you want to buy a third-party movie, something that Amazon doesn't own. You could buy The Matrix and stream it in multiple locations, but you want to buy it and stream it and have it in your library on Amazon. Amazon doesn't let you buy the digital code for that movie elsewhere. You buy it from them. That's not anti-competitive. They're saying, if you want to use our storefront infrastructure and our ecosystem to own and consume this digital content, you have to buy it from us. Well, that's anti-competitive. No, it's not, because you could buy it on Steam. You could buy it on Microsoft. Oh, but I can't buy it at GameStop. Okay, you've just indicated something that's not a competitor with Sony. That's not the case. Amazon having Matrix digital codes that you could buy in Walmart. Walmart's not a competitor with respect to digital purchases of movies. Like, it's such a it's not a non sequitur. It's something else. It's not logically sound to say that you should be able to buy those digital codes elsewhere. Saying you have to prove Sony has a monopoly is false and incorrect. It's not false and incorrect when someone just said if they have a monopoly, they can charge whatever they want. And I said you'd have to demonstrate they have a monopoly. Hilly, don't rip my comments out of context to claim that I've said something false or incorrect. I was literally responding to somebody invoking monopoly. He said if they have a monopoly, they could charge whatever they want. I said you would have to demonstrate that they have a monopoly. Listen to what I say in context. I was responding to what he said. He invoked monopoly, not me. Zubair says, absolutely wrong. Anti-competitive behavior is only illegal if they have a monopoly. Otherwise, it's legal. That's exactly right. The reason that Sony could literally walk out and say, if you want to play Call of Duty, it's $100 on our platform. That's legal. Why? Because they don't have a monopoly. It's not anti-competitive because it quite literally would drive people to the competitor. It would drive people to the competitor. You would say, I'm not going to spend $100 to get Call of Duty on your platform. I have an Xbox. I'll buy it on the Xbox. You're only allowed to make that claim if they have a monopoly. Because according to UK law that you put into the Discord, Hilly, they're only exercising abuse if you can demonstrate they have a dominance in the market. But if that product is available at another location for a cheaper price, that quite literally is the existence of competition. I'd have to go back and find your quotes, Hilly. It literally made it clear that in order for them to abuse their dominance, they'd have to restrict their competitors. That's not restricting their competitors at all. They're bringing the case under abuse of dominant position in the market. Yes, and the problem is, Hilly, they're trying to demonstrate the abuse by citing things that their competitors have done, which is why the case is ridiculous. They haven't demonstrated that Sony has used its dominant position to restrict its competitors, which was one of the things you put into the Discord. And the other one, I forget what the other one was. You put that it usually comes out in two different cases. It was restricting their competitors in something else. And that's not been demonstrated. What's been demonstrated is they charge a 30% commission fee. Okay, so does Microsoft, so does Nintendo, which means that's not anti-competitive. That's now been demonstrated to be an industry standard. I don't understand. Like, it hasn't been demonstrated, even in the argumentation they put forth, that they're abusing their dominance in the market. You don't need a monopoly for antitrust things, but I agree with Lono. They are saying the agreements with developers. We haven't seen them, what is in the contracts with the developers. So, apparently, this lawsuit, they are privy to contracts with developers, and instead of the developers suing or them taking up for the developers in the contract and representing the developers, they're representing the consumer. How do you not see how ridiculous this is? So apparently, you're asserting we've not seen what's in the contracts. Apparently, these people doing the lawsuit, they have seen more than likely contracts that are not viewable by the public. They've seen contracts, private contracts between developers and Sony, but they're not representing the developers, they're representing the consumer. What? Antitrust is about using dominance in one market to influence another. What was Walmart doing? Walmart lost an anti-competitive behavior lawsuit in Germany while not being at 5% market share. So in the EU, it's not always the same as in the US. Certainly, certainly, it's not exactly the same as in the US. But if I'm supposed to believe that this lawsuit's being put forth because the developers have entered into abusive contracts with Sony, and this lawsuit has knowledge of that, why in the frick are they representing the consumer and not those developers? It stands to reason that if these contracts are abusive, the developers have a case, and the developers would be the ones being represented, not the consumers. The consumers are being represented, and it hasn't been demonstrated that any games have cost anything more on the platform. It is an illogical lawsuit. It doesn't make any sense. It hasn't been demonstrated that the cost of buying games digitally on the Sony platform is more expensive than the other marketplaces that are available. Ergo, the customer has not been overcharged anything because of market price parity with where the games were available everywhere else. Therefore, it stands to reason this case is defunct. It has nothing to do with consumers being overcharged. And if the developers have entered into abusive contracts, then wouldn't it be more reasonable that the developers would be the ones represented in the case and not the consumers? If the agreements have something that helps determine the price or restrict the sales, it's very possible in breach that doesn't hurt the developer but maintains a price point higher than usual, which you can't demonstrate in the market because of price point parity between Sony and the other platforms. Therefore, it's a defunct lawsuit. Can you demonstrate? Hilly, it would be major headline news if Sony was just selling third-party games more expensive than the other platforms. It'd be main headline news because it would be incredibly bad for them. They wouldn't do it, and they haven't done it. Therefore, there is no way to demonstrate consumers have been charged more on Sony because it hasn't happened. It hasn't happened. You'd have to have specific examples. Where are they? Where has Sony ever done this? We would have covered it. It would have been headline news. The Sony haters would have been lined up to be like, dude, look at Sony over there. Money grubby, greedy Sony charging more for third-party games just because. Price fixing is not always a higher price, but holding a price point across channels is price fixing in the UK, which would then therefore mean Microsoft would be in the deal and so would Steam. They're claiming Sony has done it. Sony is ripping the customer off. So then if it was price fixing, Hilly, this would then be, I don't even know, would that be a RICO case? You'd be bringing in the other people. You wouldn't be just suing Sony, you'd be suing Microsoft and Nintendo and Steam. Discord. I was having a hard time keeping track of what you guys were doing posting images. Regardless of the efficacy of the lawsuit, no matter what it puts the idea in the customer's head that they are paying It's much more likely to influence emotion and behavior, including more battles like this one. Yes, that's why this lawsuit is being propagated by entitled baby mentality, because that's exactly what's going to happen. That's exactly what's going to happen. All these entitled, whiny, baby consumers that are bad for the gaming industry are going to be like, I knew it! I knew that the prices were too high on Sony. They're overcharging us. Based on nothing. Based on falsehood. Based on lies. That's why I'm irritated. I'm like, this is all we need. More dialogue about how these greedy companies are overcharging us. As we pay the lowest cost for entry in video games in the history of gaming, we're paying the lowest entry cost than we've ever had in the history of gaming. Every year that passes with the entrance to games being between $60 and $70, we are every year, because of inflation, we're paying less than we have historically. But they're greedy, money-hungry, grubby companies that are scummy and overcharging us. Yo, thank you for the membership renewal, Behemoth. 19 months, and it's a tier 2. Thanks, Lono, for the amazing content and streams. Thank you. Lono, based on prices in the past and inflation, we're paying very low compared to before. That's precisely the point that I'm making, Freddie Jackson. That's precisely the point that I'm making. Every year that passes, if we get to 2025 and games are still $60 to $70, we're paying every year, every 5-year chunk. It's like, that's less than we paid in the 80s and the 90s. The cost of entry into games is at the lowest it's ever been. Final Fantasy VII is cheaper on the PS5 versus the Epic Store. You know what I love, Paul? You know what I love? Is the Sony haters would slice this either way just to have a Sony hateful narrative. They'd slice it either way. Sony's charging less and undercutting the competition. That's what they do. They're using their dominance to undercut Microsoft. But when it's claimed that they're overcharging, that's also anti-competitive. That's when you know the narrative is false, because they would slice the cake either way to make Sony look bad. Odd regional pricing trivia. I saw PS5 controllers at GameStop for $75. Went to a local PlayStation store the day after getting back to Korea. Bought a power cord and controller for $66.22. Could be legislation. I'm sorry, logistics maybe. Maybe it's easier for them to get them at that region that you're in. Maybe there's a closer distribution center or something. I don't know. PlayStation 5 controllers are incredibly expensive. So it's possible that, I don't know, GameStop may have larger price per. You went to the PlayStation store, you're going directly to them. Maybe that's why, right? It's theirs. So they're not having to do a revenue split because it's not GameStop, it's PlayStation. That actually feels pretty easy to deduce. GameStop has margins on the controller that need to be recouped, and PlayStation, the margins are not as large that need to be recouped because it's theirs. So we need to go till... Okay. The Super Nintendo was $200 at launch, and you can get an Xbox Series X for what, like $280, $300? Yeah. So people are just accepting $70 digital games. Yeah. You know what people are also accepting? $25 digital movies. When I grew up, movies were like $10 to $15. Buy yourself a VHS. There were times where DVDs, they would sell DVDs at a loss at Best Buy, right? You know? So people are just accepting buying digital movies for $25? Yeah, we are. It's amazing. It's just awesome. It's awesome to be alive and to not be annoyed by things that don't ultimately matter. Like, I sit in my couch and I go like this. Doot, doot, TV show. Doot, doot, movie. It's awesome. It's so awesome to be into digital media in 2022. It's freaking awesome. It's great. It's so convenient. It's not that expensive. It's cheap a lot of the times comparatively. It's great. I watch a movie with my wife, $20. Boop. I didn't have to pay a babysitter. I didn't have to go to the movie theater. I didn't have to waste gas. I didn't have to sit in the theater where somebody might kick my seat. Sticky floor. Maybe the sound's funky. I can pause it. I can use the bathroom and not miss anything. It's just wonderful. And it cost me $25. Yeah, my concessions are way cheaper. I can buy a box of microwavable popcorn bags for less than the price of one bucket of popcorn. It's just awesome. So yeah, I'll spend $70 on a digital video game because it's great. Do you want to compare a $70 video game to like the $50 Super Nintendo games we bought as kids? Do you want to compare the size, substance, length, and replay value? Do you want to compare them? Because it's astronomically higher. A $5 tip from Insomniac Black. Did you see that Purple removed the exclusivity clause? Yeah, kind of. You can't multi-stream, but you can stream in both locations. You just have to do it at different times. Like, compare The Legend of Zelda, A Link to the Past, size, substance, and replay value to the Breath of the Wild. It's like comparing the moon to the sun. There's no comparison in size. And the fact that they both basically cost the same amount of money, it's unbelievable to me. It's unbelievable. Third-party digital codes does not mean cheaper games. Yeah, that can be demonstrated in the market right now. Eugene demonstrated in the Discord quite expertly that you can buy games digitally on Amazon, or you can buy them digitally on Xbox, and the prices are the same. There's a pricing parity in the market, which is why this lawsuit is just incredibly stupid. Games in the 90s had a gameplay of 2 hours and cost $70. 12 months from college. The excitement I have every day for the talk show is beyond description. Over the top, absolutely amazing show. Love you, Lono, and the community. Khaled, thank you for hitting an entire year of membership. I don't want to compare the two types of games because literally every single aspect in cost and ease of making games has changed in those times, and no one here is equipped to properly compare them. I'm not telling you to compare all those things distorted. I'm telling you to compare what you get for the money you spend. If you compare how much money it costs to buy The Legend of Zelda: Link to the Past and how much money it cost me to buy Breath of the Wild, I don't need to know a single ounce of information about how long or how complicated or how difficult it was to make the game. Do you want to know why? Because I can compare how much I played them and how much I could play them, how big, broad, substantive, and deep they are, how much replay value I can get from them. I don't have to know a single ounce of information about the development processes and the size of the staff. I don't need to know any of that. As a consumer, I can measure the value I received and say, this is a steal. A game that if I play with the same veracity that I play a game like Breath of the Wild, A Link to the Past, I beat it in an afternoon. And Breath of the Wild will take you weeks to do everything. Maybe more. And you literally spent, according to inflation, you bought Breath of the Wild for less money than Link to the Past. It's right now is wonderful. It's great. We get so much for so little. It's the equivalent of a movie ticket for a first-run movie still being $2. What we expect or what we spend has drastically changed as well. Inflation has brought the cost of everything up, and most people's pay has not gone up at all. Consumers don't want to hear about increased prices on things. Right. So, thank you for bringing that up, Distorted. Thank you for bringing that up. Isn't it wonderful? According to the UK lawsuit, Gaming is now the biggest entertainment industry in the UK, ahead of TV, video, and music, and many vulnerable people rely on gaming for community and connection. And right now, we're in the midst of a cost of living crisis and the consumer purse is being squeezed like never before. Then isn't it wonderful that gaming is seemingly immune to inflation? So while you're struggling to pay your bills and make ends meet, the one element of luxury digital entertainment that is seemingly untouched by inflation is gaming. Shut the frick up about this. If you're going to sit here and try and whine or moan in a court case about how cost of living is so hard and inflation, yeah, you know what's just remarkably mind-blowing? Is that gaming is cheaper than it's ever been and has seemingly been untouched by inflation. You want to watch a movie? You want to watch Disney Plus? You want to get Hulu or Netflix? That costs way more money than it used to. You used to be able to buy movies and TV shows for way cheaper. Why? Well, inflation's driven the cost of those items up. It's just bizarre to me to invoke cost of living and economic struggles in the industry that has been untouched by inflation. We should be celebrating. This is awesome. We're buying games for the same price that we bought them when we had Nintendos. Albums, movies, TV shows, cost of cable, up, 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 up. And just miraculously gaming. Whew. Stable. Untouched by inflation. And we have the gall to sue a company, and that to be the invocation of it. The freaking nerve of the people that drew up this lawsuit. Shut the frick up, you anti-intellectual, whiny, entitled pieces of trash. You are bad for the industry. You're scum. It's parasitic. What they're doing is parasitic. They're trying to take advantage of the uninformed consumer in the hopes of getting ahead in the world, and by taking a chunk out of some other company that's not doing anything out of step with the industry standards. Frick this lawsuit and the people behind it. Frick all of them. It's abuse of the actual judicial system and in the UK. Frick them, and frick this lawsuit. Don't you have better things to do than draw up some false lawsuit and drum up and ingratiate more entitled whining in the gaming community? We're just going to drive every company to be like, you know what? Frick these whiny babies. Let's just make mobile games. Those people literally drool on their phone while spending money hand over fist, and they never complain at all. Let's just leave this whiny, dumb market. If there's one thing that's going to kill gaming, it's not going to be greed of publishers. It's not going to be microtransactions or skins. It's going to be a bunch of gamer Karens who can't see that they're getting away with highway robbery for the amount of gaming they get, for the minimal amount of cost that it affords them. And they're going to absolutely drive companies out of the market. No doubt in my mind that it's going to happen. The quality of free-to-play games is better than any of the older full-price games. Are those not available? That too. I mean, how many... Gee-many freaking Christmas. Can you imagine showing somebody a game like Fortnite? Or Multiverses? Go back in time and show somebody Multiverses or Fortnite. And be like... Or Fall Guys. Like, isn't this game awesome? Oh my gosh! That game's incredible. You're not going to believe this. This game's free. It's free. What? I bought Street Fighter for $50. I bought Killer Instinct for $60. You're telling me that Multiversus game is free? What? Like, it's unbelievable. Sinking ship with a $2 tip through Super Chat. Media is so cheap in 2022, I can afford this. Thank you, sir. Hang on. I got emails. Okay, I was making sure we didn't have any coffee sales. I got to schedule the next. I got so ramped up, I'm like dizzy. Hang on. I got to schedule the next stream. I got so ramped. This subject always gets me so frustrated. So frustrated because it's just rooted in ignorance. And it like, there's a special place in my heart for rage when you manipulate the public with lies and misinformation and try to hurt either a company, person, or the industry. There's a special place in my heart with red hot rage for people that do this, because you're no different than wolf criers on Twitter who try to ruin people's lives. You're the same. You're a villain and a fraud. It's no different. It's the same thing. You're going to mislead the public with emotionally charged bullcrap. Yeah, poor gamers are being ripped off. Shut up. Shut up. Go write a twit longer and make a false accusation while you're at it. You're no different. Like, there's a special place in my heart to just get to pull the rage out for people like this, because you're all the same. Dishonest frauds who use emotion and don't use reason or intellect or facts. It's all the same playbook. We'll get the public all drummed up over a bunch of bull, and they'll lap it up, man. They'll lap it up. Everybody likes a villain, right? Everybody likes to feel righteous, hating on some boogeyman villain entity, some corporation. Ooh, Sony. Like, apparently every company is the embodiment of Dr. Claw sitting in a chair. Next time, gadget. Like, they're just trying to ruin your gaming experience because they charge money for stuff in their store. There's a special place waiting for people like this. Frick 'em. We're gonna go it. No, we'll just go it. We don't have to. Well, we can go early. Yeah, we can go early. They'll still get to 30. We'll go early. Special reserve of fricks for people like that. Right. It's the same thing. I hate it. I absolutely hate it. When you've seen the dark side, the dark underside, when you've seen the dark underbelly of the internet and how the mob can be manipulated to go on virtually no information, virtually no accurate information, no facts, and just go absolute ravenous destruction path, and I see it happening in gaming, I'm like, I'm so freaking tired of this. I'm just so tired of it. It's just exhausting. Here we go again. Manipulate the public with a bunch of emotionally charged language, no facts, no evidence, and now everybody's, Sony's greedy, Sony's abusing their power, Sony, it's like they all use the same frickin' lingo. Sony is being abusive to the developers that they work with, which is like so funny. It's just, that narrative is funny to me. That narrative's funny to me. Really. Microsoft forces 343 to have 18-month contract attrition on anybody who's under contract because they don't want to pay people benefits, which created a horrible creative dissonance in the company, which harmed the project because about 50% of 343's employees were on contract, and Microsoft doesn't want to pay them benefits, which is creating a horrible knowledge loss and a creative deficit at the companies that are underneath this operation standard. And Sony has reinvested in the companies that they own, and you can look at the individual growth of those companies with respect to staff size and budgets and what it's done to the projects that they spit out. But Sony's the one abusing their relationship with developers. Sure. Sure. It's so funny to me how it's always the same thing. It's always the same thing. Like the true villain sitting in the corner, and we're chasing some phantom. Do you remember the old Toys R Us ads with Super Nintendo games for like $80? Yeah. When I bring up these arguments that are usually against your view on these types of things, it's more me playing devil's advocate for my online friends and others online. I see making those arguments. I'm pretty fortunate and can afford those prices. No, yeah, distorted. Listen, I'm tuned in a lot of the times with what's going on, with when people are doing that, like playing devil's advocate, poking the bear to have a great debate, right? Hilly got in the ring today. He's maybe being, I think Hilly might be being slightly biased. He did the same thing the other day. The minute it involves the UK, he's got to set his teacup down and his crumpet down and like go to war, for the queen. And I get that, but for the most part, I can appreciate, understand when people want to get in the ring and play the other side. Hilly was right. Their law is different than ours. Right. And even in light of their law being different than ours, I still think they're failing to demonstrate how this lawsuit is logical. They haven't demonstrated how it's logical. Because you'd have to demonstrate things they can't demonstrate without contractual knowledge of these companies, which would then beg the question, why are they not representing the developers? Why are they representing the consumer? I think they're representing the consumer, and the reason they have a freaking website that says PlayStationYouOweUs.co.uk is because it's a freaking PR stunt. This isn't being handled as a legitimate court case. It's being handled like a freaking campaign. It honestly feels like politics to me. It feels like somebody's literally campaigning for election is what it feels like. Like, you go to the website, you're like, what the frick is this? It feels like propaganda. Hilly did say he'd want to pay $150 for a game, though. I think we've gotten in those debates before, and he's more okay with paying a ton. Hilly is okay, if I'm remembering his position correctly. He's okay with paying a ton up front instead of paying $60 and then having prices after. And my pushback on that position is, how on earth could you know that game is going to transmit $150 worth of value to your life until you've played it? And as you play it, if you decide to, it's called procedural engagement on a website, where you get a person to engage, and then the more they engage with the website, the more likely they're going to, convert and do the things that you want them to do on the website, right? So, like, procedural engagement in a video game allows you to increase your spending if the value and the quality is increasing and you see it's worthy. $150 for a game? Holy moly, I don't know if I'm going to get that much value out of it, right? Now, according to cost of inflation, we should be spending that on games anyway, but, the market has done a remarkable job of staying very stable and not doing that. Yeah, I'm with Hilly on that. As long as the delivery system is transparent and the process is altered to fit that model. I would have paid $150 for Elden Ring, but you're saying that retroactively. Oh, wait, are you saying you would have paid that out of the gate? Like, you wanted it so bad, you would have just paid that and not needed to touch the game? $36 million games and 3.4 million consoles sold in the UK. Sony would likely say blank the UK. Oh, are you saying, Eugene, they don't move that much product there anyway? Someone in chat kept saying it's not about the consumers. Is the case actually not about the consumers? No, it 100% is about the consumers. It's a class action lawsuit. I have to take this. Give me 1 second. I was muted, sorry. That was my cardiologist. I was basically asking him if there's these it's the CBD Delta 8 or whatever. I'm trying to get an answer on whether or not it would be in conflict with my blood pressure medication, because I'm on amlodipine and metoprolol. And I swear every time I try and get a hold of this guy with a question, he's out of town. He travels a lot. It's like, this is the second time I've had a question, and he's like, oh, he's out for a week. So I'm like, well, is there another cardiologist that could answer the question? And she was like, no, it would need to be him since he's the one that prescribed the medication. She's like, he would honestly probably just Google it. I'm like, I can Google it. I'm not finding any definitive information on whether or not. Yeah, I tried to call the pharmacist and they wouldn't answer my question either. Somebody ordered some Reforge roast 4 minutes ago. 3 bags of dark to Matasbo. Thank you, Matasbo. I was thinking of doing it and getting it and doing like the teeniest amount to mellow me out in the evenings if my blood pressure's acting up, right? You seem to be too young to be taking blood pressure medication. I mean, I'm 40 and I'm on a very, very low dosage. Like, they want you to be, for blood pressure, they want you to be like 120/80, and I typically land in the 130s. And they're like, yeah, that's not dangerous, but it's also not very good for you. So, exercise, which I'm doing now with my kiddos with soccer practice. Change your diet. I've lowered my sodium intake significantly. Ways to stress release, meditation, prayer, things like that. And so somebody was like, oh, you should look into CBD Delta 8. You can get them and cut off a third of it and just take a teeny amount. I'm not trying to get baked. I'm just trying to mellow out if it's bothering me. Because sometimes it's it's not even that it's elevated. It's just that my blood, I can feel my heart beating very hard, and it's it's either anxiety or stress or whatever. You're 40? Could have swore you were 35 tops. Yeah, most people don't think I look 40. That's going to change. I'm starting to get gray in my beard and in the sides. We buy 15 of Delta 8 to mellow out. 30 before and thought it was hard to walk through air. So he can't just be running around embracing CBD with all those backroom deals from med reps. Hurts his bottom line. All I need to know is, as long as there's no evidence that there's conflict, I can try it. I'm willing to try it. If there's evidence of conflict and risk, then I don't want to do it. I can't find anything when I Google it. I can't find anything. It's one study showed that amlodipine might be less effective when you're on it, but amlodipine lowers your blood pressure, and so does the CBD. So it's Eugene, I called the pharmacist. They won't answer the question. They're like, we don't deal with it, so we can't answer. My wife's a cardiologist here in Owensboro. Hit me up. Private message. She can answer some of your questions. How would I send you a DM? The point is, Eugene, when I called the pharmacist, they were like, we don't distribute that, so we can't talk about it. They should be able to tell you potential interactions. They wouldn't. I said, you can't tell me any potential risks or interactions. It's like the pharmacist isn't selling alcohol, but you can tell me if something you can literally tell me if a medication has a conflict with alcohol, can you not? That doesn't mean the pharmacist is prescribing alcohol. Yeah, they're going to decline to comment due to liability. Right, exactly. They're like, we don't deal with that. Which is irritating. It's like, well, wait a minute. This is now something that I can legally go purchase. I can legally go purchase alcohol, and there are medications where they will tell you, do not mix this with alcohol. Okay? This is something I can legally go buy. Does it have any conflict with this medication? You should be able to tell me that, yes or no. That should be something I should be able to find out. Lowering your blood pressure too much could be bad. Yeah, you don't want to bottom out. It'll make you feel like garbage. TBD is a direct threat to Big Pharma. It'd be hard to get an answer from those who are involved. I know. I'm half tempted just to do my own research and be like, you know what? I'm going to try it. And we'll monitor it. I'll check my blood pressure all throughout that evening. Didn't KY just pass it? Yeah, I can get it here in Kentucky, yes. Discord, PSN, I don't have a Twitter. If you get in Discord, I can add you as a friend and we can DM in Discord. Just ping me in the just go in the general chat and say hi. Chia seeds are good for lowering blood pressure. I am doing everything that you're supposed to do. I've cut sodium. I'm eating healthy. I've cut caffeine down. I literally have coffee in the morning and then no caffeine for the rest of the day. I've like doubled my water intake, exercise and running, right? And every once in a while, I'll just like feel it. I'm like, it's kind of bothering me today. It's a little triggered for whatever reason. Maybe I, get a DM on Twitter about something and I'm like, or things like that. And it'd be nice just to be like, you know what? Tonight when I sit down to watch Star Trek, I'm going to take a teeny tiny little bit and mellow out. My completely unqualified opinion is that two drugs are having the same effect through different mechanisms. They can have a synergistic interaction, so you got to be careful. Oh, exactly. That's why I didn't want to just do it. Because look, if you research the Delta 8 and blood pressure, you're going to find all these reasons to take it. You're like, it helps with blood pressure. It helps with inflammation. Right? So you try to find research of like, does it have any adverse effects with amlodipine? Does it have any adverse effects with metoprolol? Jury's out. It's hard to find good research on it. It's hard because it's new. It's new. So you need people that are willing to take it and report if it had any, adverse effects. So it's probably a very small sample of people. I called my VA care provider. They told me it helps with blood pressure, but start low. Yes, everything I read said the same thing. Yes. Everything I read said the same thing. But that's not the same as taking it while on medication for blood pressure. I'm on incredibly low doses of blood pressure medication. There's not a lower dosage than what I'm on. I'm on the lowest dosage you can go on. So I'm not in like some category of like hypertension with really, really strong prescription. I'm on like the lowest dosage you can have. So I gotta send tweets for our next stream. We gotta move because we're gonna go over to the Gamescom stream around 1:15-ish, and so we gotta go to this Cyberpunk stream. Switch Delta 8 for meds, see how it goes. Well, you can't do that. You can't do that. That's incredibly dangerous. You can't just like take yourself off of meds and start taking something else. That's very dangerous. That's very dangerous. I'm on such a low dose that there was a time where I stopped taking the metoprolol and it didn't really mess with me that much, but it's still not a very good idea. I got scolded for that pretty hard. You can't just do that. You can't be like, yeah, I'm taking something else. When you're on the lowest dose. Even when you're on the lowest dose, you still have to be very careful with just stopping something. Do you enjoy drinks in the evening while on this medication? Yeah, I was told that alcohol can be combined with the medication. Alcohol does raise your blood pressure, so you have to be careful with that. It generally doesn't seem to raise mine that much, what I've done is I have noticed that it will affect me the next day a little bit. Like on Friday, you know, we have a couple. I have more than usual on Friday. And then the next day I can kind of feel it, but a ton of water, and then I feel fine. Like it flushes it out of my system. And I've switched to Sunday through Thursday, no drinking. So I drink on Friday and Saturday, and that's it. And I've noticed a significant uptick in how I feel and my energy and my ability to run and play with the kiddos. I get in a really bad habit of being like, I feel like relaxing, and I throw back a couple with TV. I'll have 2 drinks. And then it just makes me sluggish the next morning, and then it can start to fiddle with my blood pressure. I was just looking for something when it flares up to take the edge off, because I can't always go on a walk or go do something, right? I can't always do that. All right, I sent a friend request to you, Ghost. You know, I don't always have the option, and it would be nice sometimes to sit down and watch TV and be like, you know what? I have something that'll help with this. I'll sleep better. I'll be able to relax, you know? So, just, it's not something I would do every night. It's just an option. Once or twice a week, it'll flare up on me a little bit, and it's annoying, and I can't always go on a walk. I can't always hop on the bike and do the things that kind of help. So I'm just sitting there watching TV, like hoping it goes down and hoping it calms down. Well, that's incredibly annoying. Messes with my sleep. And the biggest problem with blood pressure is, it starts to compound. Because if you don't get enough sleep, then you experience fatigue. And when you experience fatigue, your blood pressure can act up more. So it can start to have a compounding effect. Like it'll flare up on a Tuesday, I'll sleep terribly that night, and then it'll bother me all day Wednesday. And then it'll sometimes flow into that evening, and I'll struggle sleeping again. So I can get caught in a downward spiral where nothing helps. Medicine doesn't help. Running doesn't help. It's just bothering me. It's not dangerous. Like I'm not in danger of having a stroke. It's just you just don't feel right. You feel like, you know, and then it wears you out because you're constantly thinking about it. So we were talking one day in a member stream, and guys were like, you should get on this. All right, let me set up the redirect. Did I set up the redirect? I need to make sure I did. Okay. We're going to be switching to the Cyberpunk stream, talking about whether or not Cyberpunk is ending. Is Cyberpunk ending? Yeah, I'm just trying to relax. I'm not trying to trip balls, dude. I'm not trying to do that. I'm trying to literally take the edge off. Like, I would take such a little amount, I probably wouldn't even have any of those effects. Like, the teeniest amount. That's it. Okay. I'm going to put a link in chat just in case redirect doesn't work. It should bring you with us. Cyberpunk 2077 update news is that we could be heading towards a Cyberpunk DLC announcement during Gamescom, but we also could be looking at the end of the game, according to comments from the CEO. Do they have plans for more DLC or not? I'm going to break down everything right here at the beginning of the video. The latest Cyberpunk 2077 update news is that DLC announcements will be forthcoming and could be the last piece of content that they add to the game. I try to put all the pertinent information right here at the beginning so you don't have to go searching for it. These videos are a little bit longer because they're live streams. I will be ending the live stream discussion talking about the Sony lawsuit, which we basically concluded it's ridiculous, and we're going to bring those people over now. If you want